Hey, legend. Welcome back to another NOOB SPEARO podcast. It's interviews with spearfishing experts, authorities, and characters from around the world. Today, it's John Dornellas. Jeepers. Hard to sum him up in a little headline. He's a very, very interesting man, as you'll find out throughout this interview. We chat, jeepers, everything from collecting Megalodon teeth to how our parasympathetic nervous system, how our brain works, this idea of our limbic system being hijacked and sort of regaining a measure of executive control with our decision making. Some very, very interesting stuff here. And obviously, like, he's a super well-traveled Spearo, instructed people at all levels, developed spearfishing course curriculum, as well as like treatment for people that have suffered addiction and all sorts of stuff. Very well thought out man. He's done a lot of writing about spearfishing, a lot of thinking about spearfishing, and he's just an intelligent sort of Renaissance bloke. So a really good chat. Before we get there, I'm going to read out one review. Go to spearfishingcourses.com.au if you're interested in this. Richard, come on the Mackay Beyond the Hardline intermediate course off Mackay in sort of central North Queensland last year. He's an absolute legend, by the way. Sweetheart of a man. 5-star he gave the trip. Just listen to the new Mackay Hardline podcast. What a set of memories relived. Fantastic charter catering for a wide range of divers, from an ex-South African comp diver to a 14-year-old South Australian. Pristine conditions, isolated reef, and a plethora of species. He's challenging my language here. He says, to top it off, a wealth of information from some legendary Spearos. Tim McDonald, Tom Sandstrom, Shrek himself, Ben behind the lens, Kurt and the Mackay boys, solid crew of like-minded frothers, would do it all again, even if it was just to prove that we are the true 21 Blue Spot champions. Thanks to Richard for that review. If you are interested in an intermediate course and charter, I can highly recommend our Mackay, the Hardline and Beyond trip. Go to spearfishingcourses.com.au. Have not even got that course up online yet. Already sold 6 spots. There is an early interest form, and you can sign up and register. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on at spearfishingcourses.com.au, but that's kind of the central place to find out about them. So register there if you can. Hey, let's get into today's interview. John Dornellas. Really been looking forward to this chat with this man for a long, long time. Here we go. This episode of the NOOB SPEARO podcast is brought to you by Astard Pole Spears. Use the code NOOB SPEARO for free shipping anywhere in the world. At Astard, they honour the ocean, taking only what they need and leaving it as pristine as the armour have for generations. Check it out at astard.co. Equipped with a slip tip, stainless steel leader, dynamic cord for versatility and durability, made from absolute premium materials, no mucking around, 630 stainless steel, carbon fibre and titanium. Manufactured in Japan, hand-assembled in Australia and Japan, the Astard Roller Pole Spear delivers unmatched performance, combining functionality, durability and tradition. Get into it at astard.co, astard.co. Check it out. Pole spears to just die for. I've got to give you the hot tip. Check them out. Use the code NOOB SPEARO. Free shipping anywhere on the planet. Check them out. Are you US based? Looking for freediving, spearfishing gear? Neptonics is the best. Their online website, so easy to use. If you've got any questions, Jerry and the team answer questions via phone, email. Anyway, they've got an easy contact form on the site. These guys are absolute legends, and if they sell it, they believe in it, they back it, they use it themselves. It's tough gear that works. Visit neptonics.com. Use the code NOOB10 to save 10% on any order at neptonics.com. That's right. Use the code NOOB10, N-O-O-B 10 on your next order. Save 10% at neptonics.com. Today's NOOB SPEARO podcast is brought to you in partnership with Adreno. Live it, breathe it with the world's largest dive store. Huge range of equipment, always growing, always changing. They are the world's largest dive store. They are available just about everywhere. They have hassle-free returns, massive range of equipment, price match guarantee, and you can check them out online. You can even use the code NOOB SPEARO to save $20 on every purchase over 200 at adreno.com.au. Check them out. Boom. Welcome back to the NOOB SPEARO podcast. This is, as usual, we have these technical issues. It's a highly technical podcast, really, John. So thank you for just bearing with me while we tried some new tech. So,
oh, no worries, man. It's good to be on.
Yeah. We kicked off earlier. I told you I wasn't going to go deep, and then I lied to you. We might go back to that same conversation. I was saying when I was doing some research about you, I read on your life bio, you were asked for like tips for beginners. And if you guys are curious about John Dornellas, he's obviously been sponsored by Rife for a long time. And there's a really, really good write-up on him in there, and they do kind of an interview with him. Anyway, this is some of the best distilled advice I've read. So number one, you said take a level 1 FII freediving course. Let it be the foundation for any of your future pursuits in freediving and spearfishing. Choose your dive buddies wisely. 3 was don't give in to hype, fads, or ego. 4 was if you're worried about your GoPro on your head, you're missing out on the moment. And number 5 was be willing not to take the shot if it doesn't feel right. You sort of shell out this advice a little bit more, but there's, like I said, there's a lot to unpack. You've managed to sort of sum up these really big concepts. And so I wanted to sort of maybe just unpack a couple of them. And I picked ego first, if that was all right.
Yeah, no, man, I'm happy to talk about it and kind of what we were talking about earlier on. When I say ego, I don't necessarily mean it in the Freudian definition, right? When I say ego, I think it's modern definition of ego is how can I fluff myself up? How can I make myself look better? And nowadays, man, it's just so easy. Everything we see online becomes a bit of a litmus on where we stand. And this is any kind of, extreme sport or activity where there is a bit of pressure in the background. So what I mean by ego is, well, how about this? I'll tell the story on my epiphany for this, right? Rather than speaking in generalities, I'll just share my story. Earlier on, I was telling you this. When my brother first got clean from drugs, he called me up on the phone. Now, a bit of background to this. At the time, I was writing all the time in different spearfishing magazines, mostly like Hawaiian Skin Diver. Favorite publication for spearfishing ever. I was also guiding spearfishing trips, taking people out, and I was teaching courses. But there was a lot of pressure to perform, to shoot fish that were worth writing stories about in my mind, and to tell a story and have the photos. I'm taking underwater photography and, I'm trying to dive well in front of my students. And little did I know that this outside pressure to perform or to fill this role in my invisible audience, there was this pressure that had kind of been creeping in. And I didn't realize it until I had this phone call with my brother. So Michael, he tells me on the phone, he said, hey man, hey, keep in mind, Michael at the time, he was going out and he was like the chum guy on these shark diving trips, however you feel about shark dives or whatever else, either way, he loved being in the water and now he's clean and his eyes are open and he's seeing the world like a kid again. So he calls me up and he had just been out on a shark dive, hanging out with bull sharks. And he's just getting into photography as well, underwater. He was like, he's always been talented with it, but he just finally got a camera. So he calls me up and kind of like a kid, he was just like, dude, have you ever just laid there in the water and not done anything and just moved your hands and watched the light and felt the water going in between your fingers? And that was what I needed. It was this epiphany of, man, no, I haven't just been for a while. There's always something to do, something to hunt, something to chase, someone to teach, a photo to capture, the experience to share, So it really hit me. And the next time I went diving, I did just that. I got rid of any expectations, any desire to put my will into existence. And I just laid there and I moved my hand through the water. I watched the light and I felt the water going between my fingers. And instead of giving it any judgment, like, oh, it's warm. Like, no, it's not warm. You're just completely feeling. No judgment, no thought, just truly being in the moment. As cliche and hippie to be as that sounds, that's exactly what it was. It was just get rid of any expectations for the future, worries of the past. Just how about you just stay here and find appreciation for the simple floating and water and sun. That's it.
Yeah.
And man, it was like this peace came over me, this like rush. And probably all of us did, like the wonder of looking down in this amazing place, And suddenly my heart rate slowed down and I started just kind of enjoying it more.
Yeah.
Fast forward a bit, my buddy Jaga, he's an Aussie as well. He lives in Fiji. You probably heard of him, Jaga Crossingham. Amazing dude. One of the most heartfelt, good men I think I've ever met.
Yeah, right.
Jaga one time, man, I was like eager beaver, we call him. I don't know if you guys have beavers over there. You guys have like some poisonous, some poisonous version or something, probably like platypus or like, I don't know, aqua dingoes that bite you, that poison you, and your whole family will die. It's like, dude, Australians love Florida for the same reason. Everything wants to kill you there.
Including the people.
We have bogans in Florida, absolutely. Anyway, so I'm talking to Jaga, and I'm all eager beaver on his boat, like, oh man, is this where we're gonna get the dogtooth tuna? And he was like, mate, I'm just gonna go suss it out. Let's go have a look. And dude, it was like light bulb went off. And so the combination of, hey man, have you just floated? And we're just gonna go suss it out. It became this mantra for me before any dive. And before I would dive, even if I had seen a fish and I knew that I needed to like get into the zone and like hunt, and dude, it just all goes out the window when before a dive, you're breathing up, and before that last dive, you're just like, I'm just gonna go and have a look. Just gonna go suss it out. And I'm just gonna be, just gonna go suss it out, mate. So I'm just gonna be, right? And suddenly all the worries of the future, anything from the past, it all goes away. And the byproduct of that is you have more fun. I have more fun.
Yeah.
I feel more peace, and I appreciate everything around me. And it also lowers my heart rate. I assimilate into the water far better. And so my senses are much more alert. My awareness goes through the roof, and suddenly fish start swimming right at me because I don't care anymore. It's the wildest thing. And so you want to be successful, leave the ego out. Don't worry about what other people think. Don't even worry about what you think. Leave it alone. And when you can just insert yourself into that environment, suddenly you're having more fun. And when you're more aware and in the moment and so on and so forth, you suddenly are less of a hunting, offensive presence in the water, and your success goes through the roof. So now this chase that I had been trying to force into existence, when I don't care about it anymore, it happens. The number of times, dude, where I knew just not too long ago here in Alaska, I knew that somebody had just seen a massive halibut from the surface. And I knew it. And so I knew that it was somewhere around. Well, guess what? Even on that dive, I was like, doesn't matter. I don't care. This dive doesn't matter. This fish doesn't matter. I'm just going to go and I'm going to have a look. I'm just going to suss it out. And dude went down, and it was an amazing hunt, and shot her perfectly. And I, landed it. Amazing fight, amazing experience. And what made it better is that it was all good because I didn't care anymore, So anyway, I don't know if that's like some weird tangential roundabout way of answering your question.
Exactly where
That's what I mean by it.
That's exactly where I thought you were going to go. It's exactly where I hoped you were going to go. And I knew I was putting you down a rabbit hole to start with. So that's
getting ready for it, dude.
Yeah, I actually, a few of the things you touched on, I had sort of pre-written out as notes. So it's funny, it's all tied together. It sounds like, like you layer things and they all make sense. And I don't know, and certain hunts, like it sounds like halibut sort of just reconfirmed a whole lot of these ideas in one moment, one hunt.
Yeah, and it's been like that on every hunt too. There was a time when I was living in Fiji with my buddies Stu and Malia Johnson. We would go out, we'd surf cloud break, and then we'd go spearfishing all the time. And I had this dive. Yeah, so this was after kind of the whole have a look thing, right? And suddenly when the awareness clicks in because you're not thinking about anything and you're just in receiving mode, you're like an antenna, right? You're no longer transmitting anything out because you're completely in reception mode. And on 2 different occasions, you guys call them walu. Or no, I guess you guys call them not kingies. What do you call the Spanish? Spanish. Is that what you call them? Okay, so in Fiji, they call them walu. And twice it happened where I was down on the bottom. I was in this cave looking out. It was all black except for this arch of blue. And there was nothing that I could see. And it was one of those ones where you just feel yourself melting into your environment. Like your mind is completely clear. And in my mind's eye, I could see Spanish swimming, but it was through the reef and on the other side out in the blue. There's no, like I couldn't see it with my eyes, nothing. But I saw it. And so move out. I start moving out. It's about, maybe 10 meters to the entrance. And as I come out, I can still see it moving. And I look up and there it is. It was the exact same. It was the species, the size, the speed it was swimming, the direction it was swimming. It was something where if I had been worried about anything, I never would have been sensitive enough to have that. So at first I thought it was a fluke at first, like, oh, there's no way. And it happened again, same species of fish in Fiji. And since then, it's like the proof is in the pudding, man, So yeah, it's happened so many times at this point.
I think at my best, I can kind of relate to some of that what you're capturing there. On my best days, when I do manage to get fully grounded in the moment and I'm not attached to any outcomes, I can relate to that. You have the most fun. You really don't care about shooting a fish though. Like there's zero to care about. It's just gone. And then when you do shoot fish though, funnily enough.
Isn't that wild though? Like, so is there like a specific experience or is it just distilled as this common theme?
I think it's distilled, but it makes itself more aware. And every time I go hunting, like I've been out in a boat where you feel like there's this pressure to perform. People aren't laughing. Yeah. Maybe they don't know you. They haven't dived with you. And then there's this aspect of like, we're here to hunt and feel a chili, like,
right.
So you better be good. Otherwise you're not coming back. And there's that vibe that sort of prevails over the boat. And that's pretty awful to jump into the water with, feeling like you have to prove yourself or there's something. I'm XYZ deep diver. I've shot XYZ fish. Like it's just kind of stupid. Conversely, like when you go out with mates and like you've got stupid dance music on and everyone's like,
hey, dude, I hear you, man. I hear you so well. I freaking hate. You might as well play Taylor Swift. It'll ruin it. It's like I didn't come all the way out here to get inundated by the crappiest music in existence. Like, I don't want this, dude. Like, maybe like light Johnny Cash or like play me some freaking, I don't know, Vivaldi or like Mozart or Chopin or something. Something that I can just like have in the background. I don't want to freaking be listening to Swift. Give me a break, man. Yes. Anyway, sorry to interrupt you, but I hear you on that one.
When you get out with people you can just relax with. A lot of it is the people you go with. And just people's energy is kind of contagious, It sounds like you've studied a fair amount of psychology, but practically I think you've done a fair amount of reading on it from what I've listened and read of yours. You have a really good understanding of the brain and how it works. I think like the energy people put out is kind of contagious. And sometimes other people are a product of your energy, but particularly when you're inexperienced too, you're a product of the energy that other people around you are putting out. I think that's why I feel like ego is such a critical concept for most of us to be able to communicate and understand, because with new guys, I personally think ego is something that actually kills a lot of guys. Like take it So that's partly why I bring it up as well, because it's just such a big topic. Like that's why I took you in nice and gentle into the interview.
Yeah, no pun intended, but dive right in. No, and I think you hit something as far as like the ego. I think it's also, and maybe it is more ego than anything, or pride. Let's call it pride, right? Pride kind of throws awareness right out the door. Pride throws humility right out the door. And I remember Martin Stepanek was my primary trainer. The guy, he's the godfather of freediving education. Like, the memes of prove me wrong type thing. Martin Stepanek, the godfather of freediving education. Prove me wrong. Happy to argue that one. Anyway, I remember him kind of sharing, statistically speaking, and this was several years ago, but the most dangerous diver to themselves is the intermediate diver.
Yes.
Somebody who's just got into 3 digits feet wise, right? 30-meter diver. They're like, whoa, I never thought that I could get here, but now I can comfortably get here. I'm feeling comfortable. I've shot these fish and they haven't been around long enough. And dude, I was that guy. This was all before I'd ever taken a course, but like, dude, I was punching past 100 feet. I thought I was like invincible. I didn't know what a blackout was. I didn't know what a loss of motor control was. And suddenly, pride sets in. And for me, it was the pride of, well, I've always been okay, so therefore I'm always going to be okay. And man, like I almost walked over that edge a couple times. A lot of it was being naive, but a lot of it was pride. And I think when ego gets in, suddenly you throw caution to the wind when you think you're, hot crap. And I know it's taken more than one of us,
Yeah.
it has to have taken more than one of us.
I was going to ask, like, I know you've done a lot with designing curriculum. You've taught so much spearfishing. You've communicated, like, in terms of writing. You've been on a lot of podcasts. I listened to a really good one. Zero Dark, was it? The podcast you're on?
So it's the Zero Foxtrot podcast. They had me on. So they're former military brand. I never served in the military myself, but as time has gone on, as I've gotten to know a lot of these soft guys, I really have an affinity for them. They're just, a lot of them are really good men that are either misunderstood or rough on the outside, but they got a soft gooey. Said it. Yeah, I wouldn't want them to know that I said that, but anyway, so the podcast is former military. And anyway, so they had me on, and that's the one. So the Zero Foxtrot podcast.
I'm going to link it up in today's show notes. So if guys go to noobspearo.com/Dornellas, Dornellas, I'll link up that interview because it's a really good ripper listen. Like, you explained a lot of really good concepts. But one thing I think this conversation now and that conversation there touched on is, and with your teaching experience, it's this idea of grading Spearos. And like, I feel like we're at a situation now where grading Spearos, like, when you do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they have a belt system. It's not connected to anything other than competence. And, from a spearfishing point of view, I can see us needing something similar because charter boat operators need to know what kind of customers are signing on for different charters. You shouldn't go out and do some sorts of diving unless you have a level of competence. And I feel like it's also good for a self-diagnostic, because you touched on, some of those intermediate guys, they have a level of natural ability, a level of confidence, and a growing level of competence, but they don't have the wisdom and maybe the frontal lobe development that they need in order to dive the depths that they're doing and the times that they're doing and stuff like that. Can you comment more on that? And have you thought about that?
Yeah, that's a lot to unpack. I mean, we could spend an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours just talking about this, right? I'm a huge proponent for individual freedom, right? People need to be able to make their own decisions. You brought something up, though, earlier on about the feeling on a boat and the type of people that you want to dive with. I usually know 5 minutes into diving with somebody if I will ever want to dive with them again. In other words, if I'm in the middle of a fight and the guy that's supposed to be my safety sees me and they think like, oh, he's fine. Like, oh, it's John. He's fine. And they go off and want to shoot another fish because the fish are there. Like wahoo, let's just say. I shoot a fish, it's on. And my buddy sees another wahoo and they go off and chase that. What does that tell me about that type of person? For one, I need to be a higher priority for them than just killing a fish, and vice versa. And dude, again, like, I'm not freaking perfect at any of this kind of stuff. And I've made dumb decisions before. But for me, like the guys that I was diving with, I'm going to throw them into the deep end with me. But my buddies, DJ Strunts, Hunter Heverly, Carl Brubach come to mind. Okay. And it's from a specific day diving for wahoo with these three guys. And it's why this one's coming up. No offense to any of my other buddies in North Carolina that weren't there on that day. But when we were all diving together, I had done a really deep dive, got chased up by a big old tiger shark, but I'd been doing a really deep dive and I think I shot something down deep and I was completely fine. And as I'm coming back up, I feel hands underneath my armpits. And just, it was my buddy letting me know like, hey man, I got you. You're going to be okay. And man, it was this amazing confidence boost. It let me know that my dive was being observed. Now, is it my dive buddy's primary job to keep me safe? No, it's my primary job to make good decisions and to be safe. I don't ever want to ask my dive buddy to make up for me being an idiot. There's a big difference between competence and confidence and cockiness. I don't ever want to have to ask a dive buddy to make up for my cockiness. Like, and I've go with other guys, like, so they're like the shining examples. They're trained, they know what they're doing. They're very good divers and they care. And I know that they care. They love shooting fish just as much as I do. But when it comes down to our camaraderie there in the water, it's a success for all of us when one guy lands a fish safely and when every dive is safe. Conversely, I had been diving with somebody else in Fiji, and man, I saw him take this shot and he's coming back up and he's messing around with his reel and he's looking up at me and he's looking back down at his reel. And I'm like, oh man, you're pushing it. What are you doing? I immediately start diving down. I grab him. I pull the gun out of his hand because he's jammed up, and I swim him to the surface. He has a really bad loss of motor control in my hands. And I'm like, dude, what were you doing? Why didn't you just let go of the gun? He said, oh, I knew that you had me. Right. But the mindset, that's what I mean when it comes to intermediate diver. Yeah. Did I have him? Absolutely. Should he have ever asked me to make up for his cockiness or to make up for his mistake? That's asking too much. We shouldn't be doing that to each other. I think there's a big difference between like an on the fly, just having a lax mentality of putting our buddies at risk, because that's what we're doing. If they're having to save our butts in the water, there's a big difference between that and having like really clear communication. So let's say that you and I are diving and we're out hunting. I've never been to Australia, but I know that you guys have a big, what do you guys call those? They look almost like a white sea bass or a corvina.
Yeah, like a jewfish, mulloway.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say that we're hunting and it's a big mulloway. And do they hole up or no? They don't hole up. They're kind of free swimming.
I'll be around cave country, but they like there's sort of the gullies, the gutters.
Yeah. Okay. And it's like murky visibility a lot of the time when you're hunting those things.
Inshore a lot of the time. Yeah.
Right. So let's say that we're hunting for those and we've just seen them go by and we think we've got an idea of where they're at. Okay. You and I have a communication. Let's say that it's your dive and you communicate to me and say, hey, I'm going to make this dive. I'm going to move this way. You're not going to be able to see me, but keep an eye on my float line. And I'm going to basically max out my dive at about this amount of time and expect me to come up over there. So as I'm down, kind of be moving this direction, I'm going to be trying to take the shot, because if this goes south and they wrap, I just want you to be there. Awesome. 100%. I'm there for you. And vice versa. Like if we're hunting, you guys get a lot of the trouts. I mean, that's one that definitely holds up, like the flowery cod and stuff that they have. I don't know what you guys have like out in the Great Barrier Reef, but I know that you guys get a lot of coral trout, right? Okay. So coral trout, man, frick, dude, I just shot this coral trout. I tried to get him out and he's holed up at 35 meters. Well, crap. That's a problem, because we're going to need to work together to get that thing out. One way or another, it's going to be a teamwork. I tried to get him out. Tough freaking bananas. We got to work together to get this out. Come up with a game plan. And then it's like, okay, is it technically pushing it, trying to get a fish on hold at depth? Yeah, but we're communicating about it. And let's say I tell you, like, I'm going to go and try to get this thing out on my own. Do me a favor, meet me at 10 meters on my way back up. Because if it is coming up, I'm going to probably want your help, just giving me a bit of an assist. Okay. Are you willing to do that? 100%. And vice versa. Because in the end, our success is going to be, landing the fish. Our success is going to be coming home safe and developing a form of communication there that you and I become really linked on. I think that's a big thing, that as divers, as Spearos progress, they start learning the importance of communication with their buddy. And that, it's for safety, but it's also for success. And hey, man, like, we know that there's sharks here. I'm going to go and try to knock this fish. As soon as I'm coming up, I'm going to need you to go down, meet me, because we might need you on shark detail. Just virtually anything like that. So, and I think a lot of that. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, I've run a couple of intermediate spearfishing courses. I run a lot of beginner ones. I've been thinking a lot about this too. And the things you just touched on there, I've thought so much about. Like, I think that the difference between an intermediate diver and, if you want to call them, advanced, it's just purely that team ability is probably the most critical skill. I mean, it ranges, there's a whole lot of the skill. I mean, the dive ability and the hunting ability kind of has to be there if you're an intermediate diver, but you can be a red hot diver and a red hot hunter. But if you don't know how to work in a team and communicate in a team, then you're only ever going to be an intermediate diver or a dead diver.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. No, I think I can agree with that. And I think the willingness to involve your buddy in your hunt, it suddenly takes, instead of you being some solo act and you're the center of your own universe, it's like, no, freaking throw that out the window, dude. As soon as I'm willing to involve you, I have to check my ego at the door. I have to be a little bit more humble to say, yeah, I do need you to take a second shot, or yeah, I do need your help. And I think that that's kind of checking the pride at the door that I was mentioning earlier on. There has to be a level of humility, hopefully, that isn't a product of catastrophe or loss.
Yeah.
It would be way better if we could all learn from the mistakes of others, or the, 1 in a million bad luck of somebody else.
Leave
we could
your
say,
ego at the shore is the one thing.
Yeah.
I borrowed
Yeah.
Jitsu again. Leave your ego at the door is
yeah,
Jitsu is leave your ego at the shore with the course of.
yeah. No, I think that's really wise advice, man. If that's what you're telling your guys, I think that's a pretty good chunk of advice, man. I think,
My whole slogan
Yeah.
these days is encapsulated pretty much in the start of our conversation. It's no ego, full froth. And froth for me, it's like it captures that aspect of like gratitude, but being
Mhm.
so enthusiastic about what you're doing in the moment that it's contagious for everyone else around you, you know?
Oh yeah.
You've
Yeah.
got that in spades. I can already tell from reading half of the stuff you've written. You know?
I appreciate it, man. What would be funny is, and I wonder sometimes, I've been diving with guys and they get really excited when they take the shot, and I go like stone faced. And until the fish is like completely dead and usually on the boat, I don't get excited, Like I'll come up, and there's been times, like I've seen videos of it. I've like come up and I'm just like, fish on. And that's it. That is the only thing, like very little emotion until it's all done, you know? And so it's funny because, like, yeah, am I frothy about diving? 100%, dude. I freaking love it. But when it's time to be aware, it's like there is no emotion to it. I don't think there's any emotion that I can remember.
So I'm swimming over to give you a big high five and you're just like stoic.
No, well, no, I mean, like 100%, dude. Like I'd be there for a high five all day long if the fish was in my hand and I had already killed it.
Yeah. And
Once it's the sense of finality that in most fish you get, like there are some fish that I swear they just don't die. And then it's like, okay, once it's on the boat, then we'll high five. But yeah, I get really frothy, I guess, on the boat, on the way out and getting ready. I'll be goofy, but man, it's like once the dive, it's like, seriously, as soon as I say like, just going to go suss it out, it's like all emotion stays on the surface and it's gone until the knife is in the brain and it's all done, I guess. I don't know. Maybe
I want to read out one of your quotes. No, it's good.
Okay. No, let's hear it.
Try and do your accent too. It's like, we are designed to be hunters, taking life commitment to the animal, gearing up for the fight, tunnel vision, focus, absolute clarity, no excitement, no emotions. There's a job to be done. I breathe water. John Dornellas.
Gosh, where the heck did I say that?
I can't remember. It was on, I think maybe one of your sponsors was doing a shoot or something. I like it. I like the sentiment.
Oh, was that the Raised by Sharks one? It was all black and white.
Yeah, that one.
Dude, that was an awesome. I had so much fun in that interview. The guy's name is Sean Havas.
Okay.
Yeah, Sean Havas. He's a good dude, and he was asking me a question. It was one of those serious moments, and I don't even remember what the question was, but I stand by it. Yeah. Now that you say it with your version of however the heck I talk, I'm like,
you don't really.
Your American accent's not so bad.
Yeah, it depends. I'm good enough now. I can kind of pick out East versus West Coast, Bible Belt stuff, this deep South. But like, I just muck around with it. It's good fun.
Yeah. Deep South would be like, yeah, man,
he's a
super important. Listen, man, super important. When you get in that water, you don't think about nothing else. You just go down, you just have a good time. Man, and them fish come right to you. And then there'd be yours. This is the Isaac Daily, be like, oh yeah, mate, you just got to get your froth on, mate. Forget about the biting dingoes. No big deal. Just got to go out, suss it out, have a good time. When we're all done, have a, bit of a soak. I can't wait when I'm done shooting a fish. I get back on the boat, big old big spoon of Vegemite. Nothing better. There you go. Is that better? Oh, it's garbage. Freaking garbage.
I like this idea though. Like, I think that quote that I jokingly read out, like for you, there's obviously like you're an awareness of the cost of the hunt, like an animal's going to die. It's serious.
Yeah.
It's like, there's also the other thing, like you've got a struggling fish on the line and we've got these big toothy critters that like to have a go at us sometimes. So
Sure.
I hear what you're saying. I'm one of those dudes though that's like when my students like shoot their first fish or something like that, I'm swimming at them like
Oh yeah.
like the torpedo. Like
Yeah. No, I get it.
I'm more frothy than they are. But like I hear you, I'm gonna pause a bit. Because I think getting it in your hands, doing an icky brain spiking, that's really where the party should probably start, or even bleed after bleeding.
Yeah. Well, and again, I mean, I think each of us, and you've kind of mentioned about brain stuff, but oh gosh, I mean, I wrote the spearfishing curriculum with Martin Stepanek for FII. And there's this part, we had a bit of an epiphany. And what we realized, without giving away too much, is that when you're in the act of hunting, your long-term memory is wide open and you're receiving everything around you. The amount of information, like if I asked you, let's just say 5 years ago, memorable fish you shot. What was it?
Another massive part of the Killshot Spear Guns family is depth charge charters. They don't just make functional and simple, reliable spear guns. These guys also bring amazing freedive spearfishing charters to the waters around the Florida Keys, particularly around the reefs of Isla Morada. If you are looking to do a freediving course or get out on a spearfishing charter in that part of the world, check it out at killshotspearguns.com and check out Depth Charge Charters. Massive thanks to today's sponsor, Dog and Gun Coffee. It's bloody good coffee, ready for a venture. They use specialty grade beans and roasted fresh in Brisbane by a small Aussie team. Use the code NOOB10 to save 10%. Can't get better than that. Go to dogandguncoffee.com.au. Again, hey, I like the Sandbar Dark Roast as well. Check that out at Dog and Gun Coffee. Spear Ready is a 50-day training program designed to get you in shape to make the most of your spearfishing. It's a 50-day cross-training program designed to put you in shape and not feel like you don't have any breath hold when you arrive on your trip. If you can go spearfishing during the week during this program, you can even subtract something from the workout. I can guarantee that no other prep program is saying that. Check it out at noobspearo.com/spearready. There are always frothers training and trying to prepare and get in shape. It's a great way to stay motivated and do it together with our private Facebook group. Check it out again, noobspearo.com/spearready.
Yellowtail kingfish.
Yellowtail kingfish. Okay, where was the sun in the sky when you came up to the surface?
Oh, good. Yeah, up to the left. Probably like
You see it?
11 in the morning. Yeah.
Okay. What direction was the current going?
It was bouncing mostly off this big sort of pinnacle that actually rose up into an island. It was running slightly from south to north.
You notice how you just close your eyes? Because you can see it, can't you? Where was there bait fish there?
Yeah. There was like a carpet of pink mau, and then there was these 3 kings trevally chopping through, and then the kingfish were underneath them.
Okay. Where was all that action in relation to the pinnacle and the current? Was it up current of the pinnacle or down current of the pinnacle to the side?
The current sort of had a bit of an eddy, but it was running alongside. We were on the front edge of this pinnacle, so the current, and then but it was sort of wrapping around, and there was an eddy as well. And anyway, it's kind of hard to describe, but yeah.
No, but here's the thing. We could talk, dude, and I mean, the next question would be like, okay, well, where was the kingy? How deep was he? What direction was he swimming? And so on and on. Temperature of the water. Dude, you can picture that like it just happened. Like you're in the moment. You can picture it, right? That's because your animal brain, your survival depends on successfully hunting. Like deep rooted in us, we are hunters. That is what we've always done. I mean, the advent of refrigeration and ice and preserving food in modern ways, it is so new. Meanwhile, like I 100% believe in God. I believe in creation, but I believe creation can occur in however God wants it to happen. So be it. If God wants to use evolution, cool. If God wants our brains to be a big chunk of it, this limbic system, that's animal, right on. Cool. That's fine with me. Like the creation does not negate the idea of evolution to me. Okay. So a little caveat, but either way, we've got these animal brains. And when we are hunting, our brains are recording long-term memory. The limbic system, or our animal brain, that is also the center, not just of fight or flight, freeze, fawn, and so on. It's not just our protective brain. It's also the emotional center of our brain. And it's the long-term memory storage part of our brain. So there's a reason why, like, if I help you pull up these thoughts, they're so clear. And so if we can tap into that and be able to identify certain behaviors of the fish or environmental traits or the way that we dove as it relates to the behavior of the fish and there's a billion different things in our memory that are all there, and they're all there for a reason. They're there because in order for us to survive as hunters, we have to be able to replicate a successful hunt. So the way that our brain communicates now is limbic system, long-term memory, emotional center, fight or flight. Prefrontal cortex, this is where we gain our sense of identity, where we are in our community. It helps us to plan. So if I am preparing for a dive, I'm thinking ahead of what I want to do to create a safe, successful day. Well, the way that our brain works is our limbic system, our animal brain, will communicate to that very developed human brain, prefrontal cortex, and they have a conversation with each other, both for things to avoid that could create danger.
Risk management.
Bingo. So it'll work through risk management. It's also going to use that and give us the best possible way of replicating a successful hunt so that we can bring food back to ourselves and to our tribe. So there's that communication that happens because the limbic system doesn't understand future. It only understands past, both positive and negative. So it will communicate to our planner brain up here to where we can replicate a hunt. And so as you're going through these memory banks on each and every fish you've ever hunted, a good hunter automatically goes through those memory banks and can see patterns in the fish, in the environment, in their own behavior and diving that allow them to be able to replicate those dives. And we can do the same thing with mistakes. And it's really fascinating stuff. And, so that's what we're designed to do. So, again, like, you check the ego and you check your worries at the door. You do everything that you need to have like a good dive buddy, your gear's all good and so on. And then just go and record, like be a receptive antenna, if you will, and do what you're designed to do. And you're going to have way more fun doing it. You're going to be more successful. And then you're going to use that as an education for every dive in the future. And what's wild is, so your hunt for that king, you guys call them kingies, right? Kingy is kind of the slang. So your hunt for that kingy, I can guarantee you, let's say that you go and dive. You ever dove the Azores? Little Portuguese archipelago?
I'm familiar with it.
Okay. I promise you, if you were to go to the Azores and you're to be hunting, your brain would see a pinnacle and you would begin searching for a fish that is similar in behavior to that kingy.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. So there's coral trout. Well, what am I looking for here? And you'll start assigning those patterns that you've learned. You'll be able to take those patterns that you've studied many times subconsciously, better if consciously doing this. And you'll be able to say like, oh, that fish is acting this way. He's behaving around these bait and in this water column and in this current, very similar to this fish that I experienced on the other side of the world. I wonder if this type of dive on this would work. Or I wonder if this type of bait or flasher or, turning away from this fish like I did with this one, if it will increase my likelihood of success. It's fascinating stuff. And I can guarantee you, no matter where you travel in the world, you will find patterns in fish behavior that become very, very global, depending on the type of fish and the way that they hunt where they find shelter, if they're pelagic or not, and so on. Type of bait that they're hunting. Are they an ambush predator? Are they does that make sense?
Yes. I have a whole bunch of follow-up questions. So the limbic system seems to be the part of us that allows us to tap into a flow state. Is that a fair statement?
Man, I know the flow state is a fascinating idea where you get to this place where you're operating at 100% capacity. Like if you're a runner, it's like your feet are floating. You're not even touching the ground. If you're a diver and you're actively hunting, it's like, oh, and all, the fish come to you and your breath hold is exceptionally longer than when you're monkey brain. So the idea of flow state to me is something that is uniquely human. And and this is going to be doctrine according to John, right? The idea of flow state is
synergy between frontal cortex and the limbic system.
I believe so. And I think it's not just that. There's a sense of awareness that comes from that where you are so in the moment, but much of it is you have consciously done things to prepare yourself to enter into that flow state to where you maximize your chances for success in whatever the heck you're doing. So whether flow state is purely in the limbic system or not, I don't know. I know that there's a great book, actually, you would get a kick out of this one. The author is James Lohr. Remind me later, I can write this down or send it to you, but his name's James Lohr. And he wrote a book called, oh my gosh, I'm going to totally blank on this. It's Mental Toughness. Mental Toughness. Let me look it up really quick and make sure that I'm giving you the right title.
I was also going to talk about Stephen Kotler's book, which was all about flow state.
I haven't heard of that.
He delves into big wave surfers and, sort of like the top end of so many different adventure sports and people that operate, I guess, high achievers in every sphere of human endeavor. And some interesting case studies and stories and stuff in there talking about it. And as you were talking, I talked to Cameron Kirkconnell and Tim McDonald, guys like this, they seem to be able to access and remember that photographic memory and, all those variables you were talking about with that dive. They just seem to be able to do it on the drop of a hat with nearly every fish they've shot. And they remember the topography. They remember everything. I can access it. I guess it's like the guided thing, like you were helping guide my memories before. These guys just seem to be able to do that all the time, though. And I can't help but think that they're in a flow state when they go diving.
Well, and this is kind of what I was saying is there's nothing inherently unique about that. What I'm saying is that this is human. Every hunter, your limbic brain is recording. A good hunter knows how to pull information back from the recording. Is it to be able to look, if you're watching a video sitting next to me, we're going to have a different experience watching the same video. If you're asking better questions about what you're viewing to yourself, like what should I be paying attention to here, you'll probably get more out of that video than I will, even if it's the same thing. So the questions that you ask, and I kind of mentioned this to you, and this is what's in that spearfishing course, right? And this is kind of the bread and butter. And the idea is you want to ask yourself 3 questions. Ask yourself about environment. Ask yourself about you, the diver, and ask yourself about the fish themselves. 3 factors. That's it. Every single thing in that memory bank and in that video will come down to those 3 factors. And that's a very elementary version of what we get into in that spearfishing course, an FII spearfishing course. But those are the 3 factors. Every successful hunter that has ever lived, they are no different than any other human being in the way that their brains are designed, in my opinion. Their brains are designed to be successful in courting those long-term memories, which always happens in the middle of a hunt.
Yeah.
You talk to a special forces guy, when they're actively hunting, they're same thing. They're flow state, right? Back to spearfishing, if you know how to ask yourself the right questions and you write them down, all right, well, what were all the factors that were outside of my control? What were those? Every thing about the place that this fish was in. That was all out of my control. Couldn't touch that. How about the fish itself? What was it already doing? Okay. And then you look at you. What did you do? Well, what did you do and how did it affect the fish? What was the environment like and how did you respond to that? And you'll start seeing that there's linking connections between you and the environment, you and the fish and the environment. Big one. What got them there in the first place? So suddenly, when I tell you, hey, or I ask you, well, where was the sun in the sky? You
Yeah.
remember exactly where it was. There's a reason why your brain is recording this stuff. It's because it's important. And you touch on this stuff and you write it all down. I can guarantee you, dude, that if you go back through some significant fish that really pop into your memory, start asking yourself the right questions, and suddenly your video will have so much more information for you to glean for yourself and your students. At that point, you will have so much more information that you didn't even know was there. Let me ask you this. You've obviously gone to school in one capacity or another. Do you remember anything, that final algebra test that you had to take? Right? You studied so hard for that test. Maybe you didn't. I don't know. But either way, there was some test where you studied really freaking hard, right?
Yeah.
Can you remember anything from that test? No. The answer is not a freaking thing. Well, because forcing yourself to learn arbitrary information that you're not interested in is very hard. And it's not that important to your survival.
Yeah.
Getting an ace on that test, your brain doesn't care about that. If you're actively trying to provide food for yourself and for your family, your brain really cares about that. And so you don't even have to try to remember this stuff, and it's all in there, which is why, did you try to remember where the sun was in the sky?
Nah.
Did you try to remember what direction the current was going, or where the bait was, or the other fish that were chasing them, or where the bait was in relation to the pinnacle? No. And yet it's all in your head. So the only difference between a successful hunter and a not successful hunter is a successful hunter, either on purpose or subconsciously, will go through this vast amount of information. It's an infinite amount of information that you've recorded in that hunt. And a successful hunter knows what questions to ask themselves to see the patterns and then to replicate those patterns.
I find with so many Spearos that it's subconscious process. That's why a lot of Spearos sort of write off the idea of doing a course because they're just or listening to a podcast or watching a video because they're just it's just time in the water. It's just time in the water. It's just time in the water. And there's so much truth in that statement to a point. But I feel like you can dramatically reduce the reps you need to do to learn critical lessons if you do make that process more conscious. Would you agree with that?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we're supposed to learn from mistakes and we're supposed to learn from successes. And eventually with a million reps of the same thing, you're going to force something to stick. But how much more effective is it to the first time you do something and the second time and the third time you do something that you are asking yourself the right questions so that you can see every pattern you possibly can so that then you can replicate that later on. And cross-species hunt replication as well, where you start to see commonalities between, goodness gracious, this pelagic fish in this specific circumstance behaves very similar to this local reef fish. I never noticed that before. But this one's responding to, this type of dive when these other fish don't give a crap. These ones are very sensitive, So I don't know. I mean,
feel like
go ahead.
Alaskan halibut there have had an appeal for you because they don't seem to stack up that well to many other species?
I would say, yeah, they're another animal. Yeah, they really are. I always thought that dogtooth tuna were going to be my pinnacle fish. I always thought that's what I'd always heard. And then I hunted my first big halibut and it all changed. For one, if you're, depending on how you're hunting, a dogtooth tuna for the most part, and you can shoot them with a real gun, right? But if that dogtooth tuna decides to run into the depths, and most of the time there's some kind of a drop off where a doggy is, you're going to need floats, especially a big one. You have to have a float. Halibut, so a dogtooth tuna or a tuna generally is like a Ferrari. So you got 1,000 horsepower Ferrari. A halibut is like an 800 horsepower diesel truck. Guess which one has more torque? Guess which one will beat you to absolute death? And the great thing is, like the halibut, I can shoot him with a reel gun because most of the time when we're hunting, it's going to be a little bit flatter and you're feeling every ounce of energy from that fish. It is the most glorious fight I've ever had. My top 2 fights I've ever had were the 2 biggest halibut I've ever shot. Hands down, no question.
Which one of the 2 was your favorite?
Which one of my halibut was my favorite?
Yeah. Which one of the hunts was your favorite?
As far as the hunt goes, so the first big one, that's this one behind me right here. That was the first big one. Yeah, that's the current one. That one was laying still, and it was really neat because I thought it was a third of the size. And it was the image in my mind. I can still see it as clear as day. But when it first came off the ground after I shot it, it was this image of him coming up and the silk trailing off of her back. Suddenly I'm like, oh gosh, that is so much bigger than I thought it was. And just knowing that it was going to be a powerful fight. She beat me up like crazy. But the one I shot last year, which was actually like 2 pounds lighter than that one as far as weight goes, I knew as soon as I shot this one, and this one was free swimming, which, halibut from nose to tail, the entire thing is swimming muscle.
Yeah.
And they oscillate. It's not like a tuna where they've got these pistons and, the back third of the fish is really generating this powerful piston motion, much like a shark, right? And well, some sharks, and it's again, 1,000 horsepower. Very, very fast fish. Tremendous amount of power in a tuna. But the halibut, in pound for pound, a halibut is like now suddenly the entire thing is surface area and swimming muscle. And so you see him swimming through. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. The most beautiful fish I've ever seen swimming. And then I took this shot on this one. And in the beginning, it's just calm. It's like doesn't even know that it's been hit. And I hit the surface and a bunch of guys were up on the boat. And I said, I could feel it in the line. I'm like, this one's going to beat the living crap out of me. Like I knew that it was gearing up, dude. It's like the turbos were spooling on the diesel. And suddenly 800 horsepower turns into 1,200 foot-pounds of torque. It felt like it was going to be a me or her type fight. I've never felt explosive, undying power like that just did not end. And because I'm fighting it with a real gun, I get to feel every single pull, every bit of that. Like there's a personality to this fight now because, it's a real gun. There's no float. If I got to pay it out, fine, but I don't have to. She'll run laterally, but she's not going to go over a drop off. And so I have the opportunity now on a fish that if I was in, 300 feet of water, I would have to have floats. But on this one, now suddenly she's not going to go any deeper. And so as long as I kick my tail off and don't let her drag me out my line too far, I get to feel every ounce of this power. And, and you're just staying clear of your line. Don't, you make sure you're never getting tangled or anything. But dude, you feel it. And what made it even more memorable in a bad way is I had just been taking photos. So I didn't have any gloves on my hands. Now keep in mind, this is Alaska. It's like, 48-degree water. And I didn't have any gloves on because I wanted to be able to articulate my camera case. And so now I've got reel line in my hands and I'm having to be really careful that when I'm, grabbing the line and torquing my wrist to get traction to be able to pull as I'm going, that I don't hold too tight because if she runs, dude, the line's going to go right into my hands.
Deglove.
What's that?
Biggest. They can deglove.
Oh, yeah.
Or whatever they call it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, if you get a loop on your hand, I mean, even with a glove, it would do some damage. But, the cold and stuff, it's like my hands were numb, but there was just pain in my hands. So I get her up and I'm horsing her to the surface and she's dragging me down. I have to let out one. Back to the surface and then, going back down. And I finally start to see her. And because I'd shot her through the head kind of from the back, like a 45 above, 45 from the back, I was able to start to steer her nose up. Now, halibut, most people think like, oh, it's a bottom fish and that type of thing. Well, they are free swimmers. Like they'll come up in the water column and she comes up and she goes whole body out of the water, just the tail of the water, and starts freaking doing this tail walk. And at this point, I got one hand in the shaft, one on the line, and dude, she is skiing me across the surface of the water. Like, dude, like I'm skipping across the water, taking me. And then she goes back in. And at this point, I was shooting double flopper tip. And so I knew that I had a good solid shot. I had taken her down through the head and through the pharyngeal jaws. So, there's no way that the shaft was going to come out. And so I'm putting all the horsepower that I possibly can on her and finally get hands on either side of the spear shaft. And she's still bucking. And I'm just trying to freaking kill her with my knife. And so at that point, she was thrashing so hard. I mean, my hands were numb. I didn't know if the line or my knife or the spear, it was such a whirlwind. And I had a half moment where I'm like, frick, dude, this fish could kill me. It was clear as day. I remember it. I was like, this fish could kill me. And so, it's having that thought. It's like, it just, it added to the gravity of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I've never felt that way. Aside from making a stupid decision, diving too deep and trying to hold on for too long with a tuna, I've never felt that with any other fish in that same amount of power. Not cubera or pargo or the biggest, like brindle cod, you know what that is? Shot about 70 kilo brindle cod. It's like what we call a Jewfish or Goliath grouper in Florida. So in Fiji, it's one of those. And that one was a brutal fish, but nothing compared to this halibut. And I've never asked myself I never told myself, oh, this fish could kill me right now, So maybe call it a masochistic thing or whatever. But I think having that me or them feeling and all emotion out of it and just being in that fight, it is the most addictive fish I've ever hunted, hands down. And I think a lot of it comes back to what you're saying is it is such an enigma. Like all that talk earlier on about past experiences and finding the patterns.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a brand new baby when it comes to learning about these fish. I've got a lot to learn from the Scandinavians hunting them for sure.
That's pretty cool, man. How long did the fight take on that second fish?
Goodness gracious. I don't know. From shot to back on the boat, I think it was a solid, brutal, maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe. But I don't, be honest with you. It might have been longer. It might have been shorter. But it was, there's no like shoot and then let it go and let it fight the floats. And then 2 hours later, you pull it up type thing.
Yeah.
It was from start to finish, nonstop, like absolutely nonstop from the very beginning till it was on the boat, tail roped and on the boat. So maybe 10, 15 minutes, something like that of nonstop.
So much of our talk has been about the brain. I feel like it's pretty good focus. I was intrigued when I started hearing about the wolf walk. I've seen photos of it. I hadn't heard such a good explanation of it. I always think of spearfishing as like a mindfulness activity for the sea. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You love the water, can't sit through like a headspace 10-minute meditation. You're probably going to be fine. You're going to enjoy it, But the wolf walk is more of a primitive form of it. It seems to have aspects of mindfulness built into it with CO2. But can you describe what it is for everyone that's not familiar? And then tell me about what you think about it, because you seem to have quite
Sure. Yeah. So a wolf walk is basically a curriculum I developed to help people with addiction, PTSD, and really just to get to know themselves better. The actual practice of wolf walk is that it's the same thing. It's been going on for hundreds of years where people go out, they hold their breath, they hold a rock, and they walk on the bottom, right? I think the Hawaiians have been doing that for big wave action for way longer than I've been alive. But the idea with wolf walk came when I was working in addiction recovery down in Florida. I was an experiential director. So my job was you take 10 or 15 guys that are staying at this facility where I was working at and come up with something that is outdoor activity that keeps these guys not just entertained, but can learn something about addiction recovery and about themselves. So I'd take them canoeing, or we'd go fossil hunting together. I would take them spearfishing as well. I would take them shark diving. And each one had its, its benefits, right? There's a million different types of recovery out there or therapy out there. And I didn't want to do anything specifically that would be like, okay, now this is shark diving therapy, or like this is spearfishing therapy. It's like, no, dude, learn about surrender, learn about being in the moment, learn about, humbling yourself enough to realize like you are not in control, surrendering control, right? So there's a lot of those. Wolf walk, which is what it eventually became, started off as simply mental toughness training. Go, hold your breath, walk on the bottom, going to learn all the safety stuff, and we're going to have dive buddies and going to walk together, and the water's not going to be any deeper than like your chest. And you're going to go and embrace the suck for as long as you can, and it's going to hurt, but you guys have been avoidant of pain for too long, which is why you're drug addicts. So you guys need to do something hard. That's how it started. What I came to realize though is, and we'll just fast forward ahead, came to realize that the types of thoughts that would show up when these guys are holding their breath echoed the types of thoughts that would get them to relapse. And I realized that when you're holding your breath, you're burning oxygen. Byproduct is carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide in high levels trigger the urge to breathe. The urge to breathe is a limbic response. That's like where your breathing muscles start to tighten, your chest kind of tightens, and it's very physically uncomfortable. But the mental side of things, this is where it gets really interesting, because if, let's just say you're holding your breath and you don't know that the urge to breathe is caused by high levels of carbon dioxide. Well, every human being is going to experience the urge to breathe once their carbon dioxide level gets up to a certain point. They've been holding their breath. Okay. Well, one guy would say, oh, I felt like I had to breathe. I needed air. And another guy would say, like, I just was like, dude, what's the freaking point? I would ask these guys, why did you drop the weight? Why'd you cut? I was just like, F this. I don't want to do this. And somebody else would be like, I didn't want to do it. Another guy's like, dude, I thought I was going to die. I needed air. And somebody else was, oh, I really wanted to look good in front of you. And then like, I realized like I couldn't go as far as you did. And I felt like crap about it. And eventually dropped the weight. And so I started realizing like, wait a minute, same urge to breathe, different thought patterns when the urge to breathe came on. And I started realizing like, holy crap, the urge to breathe, limbic response, physically about the same for every human being, tightening. The mental side of thing completely is dependent on each person's upbringing and epigenetics and their life experiences for pros or cons, and their individual tolerance for certain emotional states was very different. So for one person, the idea of fear or the emotion of fear couldn't handle it. Another person, apathy gave them permission to give up. Another person was sadness or shame or guilt or whatever it is. And it was different. So started realizing like these are the same emotional states that these guys would explain in group therapy. These are the same emotional states that would lead them to relapse. Oh, okay. This is really interesting. So what I'm realizing is that the old animal, which thinks that it's protecting us, will actually make us feel worse to get what it wants.
Yes.
If a brain has been hijacked by alcohol, chemicals, drugs, or whatever, its pleasure centers, its reward centers are hijacked by this chemical. And if it thinks and it believes that it needs that, and it is willing to do anything and will tell us anything to get what it wants. In the end, the old animal brain, the limbic system, if it wants something, it's going to get it by any devious or shady means necessary. So let's go to the guy then. He's holding his breath. He's walking. Hey, man, why'd you drop the weight? Oh, because I needed to breathe. I thought I was going to die. I needed to breathe air. I said, what do you mean? You needed to breathe air. Like, oh, I needed air. Like, hang on. You were in 5th grade. Mrs. Crabapple, your teacher, taught you about the physiological process of respiration.
Arriving on day one of the spearfishing trip of a lifetime and feeling underdone, unfit, and out of breath is incredibly underwhelming. Well, I've got a great solution for you today. Go to noobspearo.com/spear-ready and take part in a 50-day preparation program to get you into shape to make the most of a trip of a lifetime. And I know it works. We've put a bunch of groups through this now, and people have seen huge improvements and landed on a charter or a trip and actually been able to tap into some of their best spearfishing fitness. Check it out at noobspearo.com/spear-ready. Jump in a 50-day program to make the most. If you are 2 months out from that trip of a lifetime, let me encourage you, get spear ready. Go to noobspearo.com/spear-ready. This podcast is brought to you by aqualite.com.au. This is the best solution, bar none, for staying hydrated in the ocean if you're a Spearo, and that's why we've set up this discount code for you, 10% off when you use the code NOOBSPEARO at aqualite.com.au. Check it out. Australian-made hydration products tailored for Spearos and a whole bunch of other people that suffer from dehydration too. But check it out at aqualite.com.au. Use the code NOOBSPEARO to save 10%. Noob Spearo's partner, Killshot Spear Guns, bring more to you than just wicked reliable timber spear guns. They also make awesome merch. Check it out at killshotspearguns.com. There's an awesome range of trucker hats, beanies, bucket hats, and more at killshotspearguns.com. Check out Depth Charge Shelters while you're there. Based in the Islamorada, the Florida Keys, the Killshot Spear Guns team are a wicked, passionate bunch. Proud partners of the Noob Spearo podcast. Check them out at killshotspearguns.com.
You learned that you need oxygen to survive. So your limbic brain told you, I need air, AKA, I need oxygen. Well, what is the urge to breathe based on? Is it based on low levels of oxygen or high levels of carbon dioxide? It's based on high levels of carbon dioxide, but your brain told you, I need air, I need oxygen. Oxygen means life. No life is fear. So it told you a limbic lie. It told you needed oxygen when you did it. It didn't tell you need high levels of carbon dioxide because it wants you to feel fear because it wants to get rid of carbon dioxide. But if it tells you that it wants to get rid of carbon dioxide, you don't understand the fear related to that. So that's not going to get you to give up. And so again, with Wolf Walk, the idea now is you go and you embrace the suck, you experience the urge to breathe, and you start to uncover the dark wolf. We got light wolf, prefrontal cortex, and dark wolf, our old animal brain. And we start to learn what the plans of attack are of the dark wolf when it wants to get something. I call it dark wolf because it's the idea of light being shed on something.
Yes.
Right? We view the world around us with clear eyes when there's light on things. So like, oh, we can discern.
Yeah.
But the animal brain, if it wants something and it doesn't want you to know that it wants it, it'll tell you something. It's in the dark. It's devious in nature. So the limbic system, it functions kind of like the guard dog of our house. If we have a guard dog protecting the house, we need to know, is it barking at a squirrel or is it barking at a crocodile? Is it barking at a squirrel or a bear outside the house? If the bark sounds the same and we don't know the difference, that guard dog is not doing its job. So the way that it works is the dark wolf, as these guys would go through, and myself included, I would always do the wolf walk with these guys. And I started realizing that, and this is how it goes, but first round of wolf walk, directive is go till you can't go anymore. Okay, they go till they can't go anymore. They give up the weight. Why'd you drop the weight? Oh, I needed to breathe. Oh, shame or guilt, remorse, whatever the emotion was and the thoughts leading up to that emotion. Okay, second round, I want you to go until you can't go anymore. And then when you get there, I want you to reset. You're going to still be holding the weight. You're still holding your breath. I want you to reset and then make the decision. I'm going to count 5 steps. And then you're going to count 5 steps. And you're going to be in the moment with each of those steps. Now, dark wolf only understands past. It understands a heightened emotional state. It understands fight or flight. It's trying to protect you. It doesn't understand setting a goal and following through that goal. That's the prefrontal cortex's job. So I go and all of a sudden, round 1, I go and it's like, oh, I need to breathe. Oh, now, and that's why I gave up the weight. Okay, now round 2, I'm walking. Oh man, I really need air. Oh, wait a minute. That wasn't accurate. Let's go and just keep going. I'm not there yet. Okay. And then another wall gets hit. Maybe it's, and I look like an idiot doing this. Or maybe, and so shame, right? Or fear of judgment of peers. Or it could be a slew of other things, but it happens in like a sequential order
Yeah.
where this emotion didn't work. Dark Wolf tried to use this emotion, didn't work. Now it's going to try to use this one. Oh, that one didn't work. Okay. Plan of attack C. So the person goes, they're walking, they pass through, and finally they hit this point where like, oh my gosh, I've got to, and they want to knee jerk react, very reactive. So like, wait a minute, no, I'm going to count 5 steps. Okay. And then they start counting 5 steps. Well, neurologically, what are they doing? They're pulling control away from Dark Wolf and they're giving control to Light Wolf. How? Because the limbic system, which only understands past, and it's using past ideas and past experiences and the way that emotions steer our compulsive behaviors, that's what it's trying to do, is to get us to give up. Well, now we've wrestled control back. We've given it to our higher selves, our form of identity, who we really are. As we say, no, I am going to count 5 steps. You go sit down.
Yeah.
Talking to the Dark Wolf. You go sit down. I'm going to count 5 steps. Now, what are you doing? You're goal setting and you're planning. This is forcing your prefrontal cortex to engage in the midst of adversity, extreme adversity, mental adversity. Okay. And it counts 5 steps. At the end of the 5 steps, you place the weight down, come up and you breathe. Now you've ended, not compulsively when the Dark Wolf wanted you to. Those are the rabbits. Those are the freaking rabbits going nuts. You know what's funny, dude? Is my kids, they'll go and set snowshoe hare snares and like they'll eat the rabbits, but they're white, like white rabbits in the forest behind our house. But these ones are gray. We got my daughter for Christmas. So like, I guess there's a difference. Anyway, dude, rabbits, shut up.
I wanted to chat with you about anthropomorphism when we get there. So,
Oh yeah, I would love to.
just a quick question. Dark Wolf, Light Wolf, right? Counted this. It sounds like you're teaching them to encounter adversity, rewire their brains for a different neural pathway, and then
Yeah.
it slowly develops resilience and an alternative methodology of dealing with some of these issues that are hardwired, like you're sort of saying. It sounds awesome. One of the things I've found, though, was that direct confrontation with that Dark Wolf. It's hardwired for protection, so you can't really fight it. So you have to sort of almost negotiate or surrender, or at least acknowledge
Bingo.
the stresses that it's pointing out.
Bingo. And that is where there's a beautiful sense of a symbiotic relationship. You know, when I talk about myself, if I screw up, I do something dumb, and I'm like, frick, I can't believe I let myself do that. Listen to the duality on how I talk to myself. I can't believe I let myself. 2, I let myself. So, in other words, Light Wolf let Dark Wolf. I let my guard dog do that. We talked about ourselves dualistically, but my true sense of identity, capital I, John, who I really am, higher self, spirit, prefrontal cortex, sense of identity, you name it. That's who I want making the decisions. But it doesn't mean that my animal brain is my enemy. It doesn't have to be. We don't want it to be our enemy. I don't want my guard dog running my home, but I do want my guard dog there.
Yes.
But my guard dog needs to be trained to not bark at a squirrel the way that it barks at a bear or an intruder. So how do I train that dog to do that? Well, first and foremost, I can't react to the squirrel bark the way that I would with a bear at the door. And I certainly shouldn't feed my guard dog and tell him good boy when he's reacting in an inappropriate way, in a compulsive way. So my guard dog of my home should be trained to do its job, which is protect the home. My limbic system should be there to protect John. It should not be there to control my life. And if I find myself acting compulsively, where I'm constantly asking myself, like, freaking, why did I do that again? Oh, and if I'm blind to myself, the whole idea of Wolf Walk or any of these, self-help books or anything, what is the goal? The idea is like, don't be a mystery to yourself. You know, like that's the whole freaking idea is don't be a mystery to yourself. At least know why you did something,
Yes.
you know? And
Love it. I
wow.
I went back and I saw a psychologist for a little while because I've like I'm probably a couple of years older than you, and it sounds like I think we go through this journey where like self-awareness is kind of inevitable, or you're doomed to just stay in the past traps, and there's that old
Mhm.
Einstein thing. It's like, if you do the same thing over and over again and expect different results, you're an idiot. And it's like,
Mhm.
I found myself trapped in pattern behavior. I actually ended up doing this thing called internal family systems. And it's very similar ideas to what you're talking about. Have you heard of that?
What's it called?
Internal family systems.
No, I haven't heard about that.
So I won't take it all the way down the rabbit hole. It's very similar to this idea that, you have these parts of yourself that are protectors and they do run you with negative emotions. So a lot of the ideas you're talking about, I can relate to in my own life completely. It also oddly relates to that old Cherokee parable, the two wolves one. You remember that one?
Yeah. So believe it or not, that was originated from Billy Graham. He associated it to the old Cherokee parable of the white wolf, dark wolf.
Yep.
But there's no source to say like, oh yeah, it definitely came from this Cherokee.
Huh.
I think he used it more of, and I think he did it innocently, was to attribute this as like, okay, a sage person was able to give this very profound advice. Like the which one is going to win in the battle between light wolf or white wolf and black wolf, which one's going to win? Oh, it depends on which one you feed, right? Well, we're not and that's like the very general idea of good me versus bad me,
Yeah.
as opposed to isn't good me discipline me?
Mm.
Like the opportunity to act compulsively, which is really compulsive behavior, is everything wrong with addiction and adverse PTSD response and cutting somebody off in traffic because they gave you the bird, or kicking the dog when you walk into the house because you've had a bad day, or even, oh man, that person makes me so mad. Bull crap.
Yeah.
No, they didn't. That person has no ability to reach into your chest and grab your heart and say, you're going to feel bad. They don't have any power over you. The power that we give to circumstances is when, yeah, it's internal. And when we get at too heightened of an emotional state, we find ourselves acting compulsively as like a self-soothe or as a protective or a reward pathway. So,
Got it.
I think the parable's really good. And I think generally speaking, it's really good. Light wolf, dark wolf definitely has its roots in that parable. The idea of light wolf, dark wolf is more like, dude, dark wolf should be your friend.
Yes.
But light wolf or me, I should be able to say, when I see that guy coming, like, listen, buddy, it's just a squirrel. It's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Go lay down. You've done your job. I know that you're trying to protect me. I don't need you right now. Go have a seat. Thank you. Do you know how much power comes in when you're able to say, oh, fear, I see what you're trying to warn me from. I don't need you here. Go and have a shame. Oh, I know where you'll lead me if I give in to you right now. How about this, shame? You go and have a seat over there. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing because this is what I'm trying to accomplish and you will get in my way. But thank you, Dark Wolf. Go and have a seat.
Love it. Someone else said to me one day, they were like, emotions are terrific servants, but terrible masters. And I'm thinking,
Dude, that is so good. You got to send me that quote. I have to memorize that one. Emotions are terrific
servants.
but terrible masters. Oh, dang, that's a good one.
I've thought
Dude,
a lot
that's a
about
good
these
one.
ideas too. The other thing I was going to say to you, like when you're dealing with people like with chronic addictions, they are dealing with the acute symptomology of this stuff. But like people that live in this limbic brain, stupid knee-jerk response, they're everywhere in life. They run the media, the headlines that they get us to read. Like it's like and it appeals to the most basic and base nature of us. It's just like it's there for a reason, but we just can't let it have executive control of us, eh?
100%, man. I mean, again, logic center, emotional center. Nothing wrong with having having emotions over things. Like, we shouldn't be robots. We should be able to have an emotional experience, right? The problem is, and it's like you said, dude, emotions, terrible masters. They're terrible masters. Well, let me ask you this. Does a rational person or an irrational person buy things compulsively?
Mm.
Do they tune in and give advertiser money to the channel when they're logically thinking about a news clipping? No. A fearful, divided, emotional, illogical person that gets boiled up every time a political conversation or the world's going to end or this or that. There's a very good reason why news and media and, freaking Satan, for crying out loud, likes to keep us in an illogical state, AKA a negative emotional state. Well, because if we're in a negative emotional state, Dark Wolf is running the show. Dark Wolf doesn't understand logic, and therefore it acts compulsively. It acts irrationally. And an irrational person buys more.
Yeah.
They respond more. They're more reactive, and they're much easier to control. They're much, much easier to control. So if you want to get a vote or a dollar, keep the people fearful, keep them thinking illogically.
Love it, man.
100%.
Big picture stuff. I think spearfishing gives us access to some of these ideas, but it is good to hear the ideas kind of taken to their logical conclusion. I had a job in marketing for a little while, and I read too much psychology and understand how to feel good about doing that job, because it's too easy, but it's all ugly. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to be a good marketer, you've got to be a crap human being, I feel like sometimes. And a lot of us kind of know that on an intuitive level, which is why we hear like, oh, you're a marketer, sweet. And we just walk in the other room.
Flick a banana onto that guy's boat. Yeah, no. Yeah, I think especially like, as a marketer, it's one thing. We're all marketers.
Yes.
Right? Like, but you don't have a problem marketing for Noob Spearo because you believe in it and you feel good. Align with that. No big deal. But I imagine, like the few times that I've tried selling things, I'm really good at it, but I'm really crap at it, because if I don't like the thing that I'm trying to sell, it's like, I can't do that. Like, this is a bull crap freaking product. I don't feel good about this. Like, so it's like, no. I hear you 100%.
Talking about products and sales, you've been a Rife man for a long time. And one thing Rife is a brand that sort of has grown on me and grown on me and grown on me, and Jay's gone now. But like, I look at the guys that they sponsored and how intentional they were with the people they went out for. And I'm not character vouching every single person that's Rife sponsored, but there's so many of you guys that are just like really high on integrity, great ability, and a lot of Renaissance people, like they just think deeply about the world and the problems. So, man, hats off to Jay or whoever did a lot of the selection for the people that he brought on. Like, it's pretty cool, I reckon.
Man, I've been really fortunate. Okay, Paulo Afonso is the one that comes to mind. I dove with Paulo in the Azores. He's the guy that he's shooting more gigantic bluefin than anybody else on this planet.
Yeah.
And dude, he is like I was there right after my son was born. My wife and I were there visiting them. And this is actually, I think this was at a time when I was kind of like stressing about, videos and this and that. And now looking back, I realized like the best thing about that trip was hanging out with Paulo and his wife and his son, because his way of viewing the world, man, he's just a good man. He's a good man. He's good to his kids. He's humble, very competent, but very humble. And, he's been a Rife diver now for years. And it's wild that this guy in a speck of island, 900 miles from Portugal, and whatever it is, 1,000 or 1,100 miles from, what would that be? Like Virginia, he's in the middle of nowhere. And he's been an amazing person for Rife. Like, dude, hats off to Jay and Jill and Jackie and Julie. It's a lot of J's with them. But hats off to him for finding somebody like Paulo and finding value in this person that's.
I've done that. I've done that with people all over the world, though, because they pick people in Australia. Like,
Tim McDonald, good dude.
Yeah, they picked out good people. Like, I don't know. There's some very clever stuff going on there. I'm cognizant of your time, John. Like, you got a young family. You're staying up late at night to do this interview with me. I don't want to keep you forever, but I could honestly chat for another half hour.
It's fine with me, man. I'm enjoying the chat. We can go as long as you'd like to go, but I also don't want to, create ear problems with your listeners either.
You won't. You won't.
Especially if I sound like that freaking accent that you did earlier on, and be like, oh man, I can.
We are designed to be hunters. You don't do that. No, let's keep going then. As long as you're happy. I wanted to talk about your Floridian roommates. You were talking about like you weren't a guy that went out and went partying. You somehow managed to tap into something good and just get out diving. And it sounded like you surrounded yourself with some people that were similarly minded and you guys became good buddies. Which
So I
I would
think.
say is common.
Are you talking about like my college experience? Because I think, yeah. So those were my buddies. I went to Brigham Young University, Hawaii,
Oh, okay.
and and so my roommates out there, I had a good group of roommates, and some of them like wanted to be more social than I did, but like my buddy Darwell, for example, and Chase. I mean, those guys wanted to go diving or surfing all the dang time. My other roommates like Remy and Garrett and Chad, all really good dudes, but it was specifically me and Darvel and Chase. Like we would go night diving, and Darvel, man, like Darvel, dude, just still sum him up. And he's actually a phenomenal diver as well. He's with Spear America. Do you know who Petros is? Good.
High reputation, yeah.
Dude, man, Petros is another. I really like Petros. He's, what is this, Cypresian from Cyprus. Anyway, so Petros hired to help him out with Spear America and everything. And great person for that. But in a personal note, this will sum up Darvel. Okay. I threw away a moldy orange. Darvel yanks it out of the garbage, says, dude, I'll eat it or I'll have it. Darvel catches an octopus about this big in Hawaii, taco. And he brings it in to keep it our little aquarium we have. Well, there's not a lid on the aquarium. The next morning, I'm leaving to go to my class, and there's a dead octopus on our kitchen floor because it had crawled out. So Darvel sends me, no, he didn't send me a picture. I think he showed me later. But I was driving, and Darvel called. He's like, dude, that octopus is so good. I just cooked it up for breakfast. Like nothing goes to waste. And he would get like these little fish and stuff on our night dives. And Darrell, at the time, he couldn't cook to freaking save his life. And he would just add peanut butter. He'd take peanut butter and he would like cook rice and then whatever fish with like nothing in it. And then just dump peanut butter. He's like, oh, you got it. It's so good. I'm like, bro, I'm not going to eat that. Sorry.
You watch
but
Octopus Teacher?
No. I think that they got a couple of different octopuses in that.
They 100% though. They 100% though.
There's a couple times I'm like, that marking looks different. I know that they're chameleons and everything, but
100% they're different.
Call me a pessimist. But no, Darvel and Chase though, man, like they were really good because we would rather go and play in the water than go to whatever social thing. So, what's that?
You studying?
I was an English major.
Okay.
I was an English major. Yeah. So I did my final thesis on John Milton's Paradise Lost.
Wow.
Talk about things I'll never remember. I really worked hard on that thing, but I don't remember a dang thing from it.
You got strong writing game, man. And I know because I've tried writing a bit and like you've got to do, I'm this guy, like I think I wrote my first 100 blog posts and they were just awful. And then my next 100 and they were bad. And then my next 100 and they were unreadable still. And then the next 100 were, do you know what I mean? Like I know how many to do to get good. And I wanted to talk to you about writing as a dying art. Because
sure.
How has writing changed your life and influenced the way you think and communicate?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. First and foremost, I became an English major because it was the only major where I didn't have to do math. Okay. So I didn't know that I wanted to get into writing or anything literature. I just didn't want to do math. I sucked at math. I had to take college algebra like 4 times to finally like pass it. I was terrible at math, dude. It's like another language that I'll never understand. So I was like, oh, I'm never going to get halfway decent grades. Not that I really did anyway, but if I don't have something that doesn't have math. So my mom was like shouting out, I'm like stitching the upholstery in my Volvo station wagon. And she yells outside while she's looking at possible majors at Brigham Young University, Hawaii. She's like, how about English? I'm like, is there any math involved? She said, no, no math. I'm like, all right, that one. Anyway, so fast forward, I'm like, learning American literature and then old English literature. And we're studying, Beowulf and the Green Knight. And we're studying freaking Vonnegut. And we're studying, Longfellow and John Milton, Paradise Lost, and then of course Shakespeare and that kind of thing. And I remember there was some time where, like, as I would read this, I loved the fact that there was so much gray area. There was no one right answer. And so you could use language to craft a story, or you could take something that seemed like it was this, and then by crafting it, you could make somebody think, well, wait a minute, maybe it's this. And that, to me, there was a tremendous amount of power in using language to see the tree from different angles. You and I are on opposite sides of a tree. You tell me there's moss on it. I say, no, there's not. Well, it's because on your side, there's moss. If you can convince me, I will start to believe that, well, maybe this mossless tree actually does have moss on it because I can only see so far around. Maybe his perspective is worth listening to, right? Like to me, that's the power of being able to write, is like, hey man, I could try to manipulate you with words, but how about using words to just have you think a little bit differently than where, and without telling you like the way that you think is wrong. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
you started writing the spearing publications.
Thanks for keeping me on topic, by the way. I am so tangential. I'm sorry.
I love it. I like writing, and I read broadly. My subject matter, I run a spearfishing podcast, but my interests are very varied as well, as you can tell. But I've written about spearfishing too, and I know you have. So when you brought this set of skills into the world of spearfishing, what was your motive? What was one of the pieces maybe you're proudest of?
So a couple of questions in there. The first one was kind of the motive, and then the other one was a most proud piece. So first off, motive was, if I'm published, then maybe I'll get a sponsorship.
Okay.
In all honesty, yeah. In the beginning, it's like, if I can get enough publications and my photos are out there, then maybe this sport or this activity doesn't have to be so expensive to me.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Fair enough.
And in the meantime, it's also, but after the first article, my first article was from a trip that Darla and I did together. It actually ended up in Speared magazine. And it was when we sailed across the Atlantic Ocean together, we ended up in the Azores. It was a massive article. And it wasn't like 1 million people reached out to me, but the couple of people that did, their words of encouragement on my storytelling kind of made me think like, well, maybe it's more than just school papers and that kind of thing. And I started really enjoying storytelling. And so as time went on, as I would write for specifically Hawaii Skin Diver, like that to me, like that was it. And working with Clifford Chang is a visionary when it comes to his layouts and the way that he would use the photos. And he never cut any of my stories short. He would take my written word. If there was like punctuation out, like absolutely fix that. But he would never touch the written word. He would take all the photos and he would sculpt this printed story where I wrote the story and I took photos of the story. But now Clifford, I'd always felt like I was entrusting, my story and my photos. And I knew that he was going to cradle it and create something beautiful out of it.
Yes.
And so that, to me, when I saw what a story could look like, I wanted to be in Hawaii Skin Diver as many times as I possibly could, because Clifford Chang was a craftsman in ways that I just am not, like visually, and taking the words and the photo and then the highlight on these words specifically as it pertains to this photo. And if somebody's thumbing through and just looking at the photos, it's one thing, but as they read this, and then he was able to take much of the emotion that I felt replicating these stories on print or in words as well as imagery. And I just knew he was always going to knock it out of the park. So that's kind of the motive, right? Is the enjoyment and so on. As far as the work that I'm the most proud of, I would say I would feel more proud if my book was actually done. I'm writing a book right now on Wolf Walk, and a lot of it is, some autobiography, but a lot of it is lessons that I've learned from my brother. My brother passed away after he was clean for several years, and he did some really incredible things in the underwater world. But he died of an overdose. My mom found him, and
Fentanyl.
I had to. Sorry to yank this thing, but I had to take care of his body and everything. And it's talk about trauma, dude. Like, try dressing your brother's body and then pushing him into a cremator oven on the same day. Talk about leaving a mark on you. Anyway, so the book became a way for me to be able to take these stories and tell story, but then also like a bit of an homage to my brother as well. So when that's done, that'll be really good.
You'll have to come back
As far,
when it releases. I'd love to help you get it out there.
I love that, man. Like talk about it. Yeah. Anyway, that's another conversation for sure. I'm excited for it to come out though. I feel like it's necessary, but as far as the art,
I'll link up
go
some
ahead.
Michael stuff in today's show notes, because I feel like if I'm talking to John, we should probably share some Michael stuff too. It was the Reef Hunter.
Yeah. Reef Hunter on Instagram. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, sir. I breathe water. I really like how you guys, I don't know, you left a body of, he left a body of work behind. You can tell, you can learn a lot about him just from looking at some of the content behind him. And I guess it's going to be the same with you if your kids get older,
Yeah, I hope so, man. I think the book will be good. The spearfishing curriculum was more, I wanted to provide something special for Martin and for FII, and then kind of pull back and let it go with a bunch of the other instructors. The book, the Wolf Walk book, which I don't even know what it's going to for sure be called, but I think I'm like freaking, I don't know, 40,000 words or 50,000 words into it. I don't even know. When that's done, that's going to be more like, it's something where I've had multiple guys who were addicts and special forces, guys with PTSD that have reached out to me years later. And I know that Wolf Walk has saved lives already. And I know that it's changed lives and helped people do better. So the idea that the book could help one person is really important to me. The actual publication that somebody could find, it was called Clarity. And it was a Hawaii Skin Diver magazine article. That was my Fiji trip with my brother, Michael, one of my dive buddies, Mike Jutt. I feel like Mike Jutt from the outside would be considered misunderstood if you didn't realize what a freaking golden-hearted dude. He was one of the guys that called me up when Michael died and was, Mike Jutt's a good man. So it was me, Mike Jutt, and my brother on this trip. And, this was not too long after Michael got clean. And so just remember how I was talking about him, like childlike guys. So getting to be on that trip with him, and there's some of these experiences there that I'm so glad I wrote down and created an article out of it. Because that to me is, I was reading through it again not too long ago, and it was like, holy moly, I am so thankful that I got to have this one trip with Michael.
Yeah.
This one special, while he was clean, while my brother was back and before my brother died. Like this. So that article to me is like this, it's this treasure to me, because those memories that were associated, I'll never forget. We're coming back. We've been hunting doggies all day. We landed more doggies than I will ever be able to count. And we were giving them to the local chiefs and stuff, and on this little island. And we came back and the wind completely died. And we're like laying there in about this deep of water. And the stars were out, and it's just me and, our buddy John Fatiaki and his brother were there. But it was me, Michael, and Mike just floating on our backs. What was the best part of the day? I don't remember the fish that we shot that day. It was so many of them, like if I was to be able to go back and think about one specifically, I'd be able to. But what left the indelible impression on my soul that day was that night, like the three of us just floating there. And I never would have had that experience if Michael hadn't gotten clean. And that experience becomes ever so poignant because he's dead. Does that make sense?
100%.
So that article to me means a lot.
I have an idea for a title for you.
Catharsis. Oof. Yeah. I think
Even
there is a sense of catharsis, even if it's like the subheading,
yeah.
my catharsis.
Well, you're one of the few guys I've met that has a good level of awareness around strong emotion, but then also the ability to express it. Some of us may have one or the other, but maybe not both. And I think the book would and even the idea of a wolf walk is kind of helping guys to get hold of that idea, because it is about bringing emotion to bear. Like, it's about to heal almost. Like, but you have to express it sometimes to do that, I think, too.
Yeah.
Probably got a big sense of that from you, I think.
Well, take that as a compliment, man. Yeah, you want to know something that's really amazing too. And, obviously we adhere to the buddy rules and that kind of thing with diving, right? Dude, you got to stop drinking water. I've had to pee for like an hour. Every time you sip that water, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm dying here.
Sitting here in
Um,
and it's probably like 29 degrees Celsius in this room.
yeah, dude, it's sweating over there. Now I got like my wood burning stove going on behind me, and my freaking butt cheeks are sticking to this chair because I'm still in my gym shorts over here. So like every time I get up, listen to this. Can you hear that? So like up here, I feel totally good, but because my butt's next to the fire, it's like my butt is sticking to this chair.
Yeah.
Anyway, so total. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, as far as like being able to express emotion and that kind of thing, one of the important things about Wolf Walk, and I think it carries over into dive buddies. They've done studies where if you and I are diving together and you come up and I'm looking at you, I'm checking and making sure that you're okay. I put my hand on your shoulder. Facial gestures, tone of voice, and physical contact lowers cortisol and raises oxytocin. Oxytocin being like the rest, comfort, And so, there is a tremendous, and this is another part, I think, of having when diving is something that you really feel like a sense of safety with somebody. Like that is such an important and valuable part of what we do. Because like when I know, it's not just that mentally I know that I'm safe, like chemically, my alarm levels go down and my safety levels go up chemically when you're a good dive buddy. How wild is that? And so of course, like if I feel safe with my dive buddy, like, yeah, dude, it was a lot of my dive buddies were the guys that I immediately called when my brother died because I'm safe with them.
I reckon though, like it's just your family in the water. Like that's why we like coming home at night, because we have that same oxytocin response.
Yeah.
Straight away lowers cortisol. And I guess like people around you that you want in your life are also people that have that similar effect. When you're putting yourself in high risk situations, or at least situations where you need to manage high risk, well, people around you like that. So it makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. And I think to get rid of some of the cloud and the noise, and it's one of the reasons why I don't like the music playing on the boat, and why like if people are too rambunctious and crazy and, they're there because they can't wait to shoot a fish and then freaking shove a beer into its mouth and drink the beer out of its butthole. It's like, you guys can go do that over there. Have you seen those photos and the videos? It's like, hey man, no judgment, but go do that over there. I like my crew. I like the guys that I die with. You know what I mean? I'm sure I've done some dumb things like that too. Multiple times, I'm sure.
I'm running spearfishing courses here in Australia, just an infinitely practical question for a sec. I noticed you said like your training under Martin was like super rigorous. How would I go about getting certified and maybe bringing and having a look? Because one thing I noticed, like, like if someone's done something that's similar to you, why not go and learn from each other? I feel like the whole world could do with like a body of knowledge. Like the same as I think we should have a grading system for Spearos. So Spearos can start to recognize their own blind spots. So charter operators have peace of mind with regards to who they're bringing on their boats. All of this stuff could be sort of unified into some sort of like recognized curriculum, like what makes someone competent? What are the core skills? How do we not overwhelm someone on a beginner course? You know what I mean? Like I would love to maybe get certified as FII under this curriculum because it's just more tools in my belt as far as I'm concerned.
And I think, I was talking to some guys from another agency and I couldn't believe it when they told me like, oh yeah, no, this agency is crap, and they're like, yeah, no, we know that FII is blah, blah, blah. And I've never been in another agency, so I can't speak to the details. All I know is that Martin and FII and everybody who is past that makes it through this rigorous process, which has a very high attrition rate. And the idea is because if the standards for instructors are absurdly high and they're willing to dive a certain way and teach a certain way and then demand a certain level of competence by their students, and they're not willing to give away certification cards willy-nilly, it keeps a certain standard to where, hey, an FII level 1 diver, you pretty much know what that means. An FII level 2 diver, you pretty much know what that means. And that was the same goal with the spearfishing curriculum, is like, hey, by all means, people are going to want to do things in different ways. And just because we teach you a specific way to hold the gun, it doesn't mean that's going to be the only way that you should do it. But there's some of these safety things on like, hey, have you thought about this?
Yeah.
Let's standardize these things and have this safety side of thing. And then let's help students to know exactly how to tap into their hunting mind.
Did you know when coming up from a spearfishing dive, it's possible that you would feel 100% fine right until the moment you blacked out? Did you know being dehydrated or hungover increases your risk of having a blackout? Did you know I have never seen a person hit the surface and yell, "Dad, help, I'm about to black out, come save me"? No, they typically hit the surface, take a couple breaths, and then quietly sink into the abyss. Whether they live or die is 100% dependent on if you are close enough to grab them and take care of the situation. Did you know that if you have a loss of motor control or blackout and you continue diving that day, you are way more likely to have a much worse blackout? My name is Ted Hardy, the founder of Immersion Freediving, and I want to do more to stop the needless fatalities from shallow water blackout than any other person on the planet. And that's why I created freedivingsafety.com. You can learn how to reduce your risk of having a blackout, how to save your buddy's life, how to tell if you're wearing too much weight, and avoid breathing techniques that drastically increase your risk of having a blackout. And it's all for free. Go to freedivingsafety.com and sign up for my free safety course. Dive safe out there. It's not even that hard, especially when you learn for free at freedivingsafety.com.
Check out the hardest hitting, heavy duty, dirty dogtooth tuna mastering float line at oldmanblue.com.au. Not all float lines are created equal, especially when landing a shot in a big, dirty fighting fish that just wants to drown your float. Slow them down with the Old Man Blue heavy duty float line. It comes with a full brake system. Also included are heavy duty shark clips on both ends with D shackles. Included is a shock cord lanyard for keeping it neat and tidy on the boat. Check out the hardest hitting, heavy duty, dirty dogtooth tuna mastering float line at oldmanblue.com.au. How cool is it going on a spearfishing adventure with like-minded frothers? I love tapping into this vibe and energy and being around people that have exactly the same values and want to just get their froth on for a week of spearfishing. If you are interested in doing a course, charter, or trip, I would love to hear about it. Go to spearfishingcourses.com.au/interested and register. Tell me where you want to do a course or charter. Let me know. And if I've got a bunch of people that are keen and like-minded, we're going to put that trip together and make it happen. Again, go to spearfishingcourses.com.au/interested and fill out your details there. And let's get some trips on the road and get out there and get our froth on with a spearfishing adventure of a lifetime.
Like, that's a big part of it. And then there's a whole section in there that Martin wanted to, and I had never thought about this, but Martin was adamant that there was a whole section on ethics, which is, it's not what you think. It's not about like, okay, here's how you need to think. And no, it's just, hey, I'm not trying. Errol Patinia, a phenomenal instructor with FII, been around for a while. And he says, I'm not trying to tell you how to think. I just want you to think. I'm probably butchering that quote, but that's pretty much what it is. And so, so how would you go about it? I mean, my suggestion is, especially since you're in Australia, I would go out and learn from the horse's mouth right in Kona in Hawaii. It's a little bit closer to get to there than it is to get to Florida. But yeah, Martin will run. It's like, it's multiple courses. So you could go through and you take a level 1, and then you take the assistant instructor, and then you take advanced freediving, you take level 1, then advanced freediving safety, assistant instructor, and then instructor exam. And some people will go through the whole thing and get it all done in one go. It is a lot though. I mean, it's let's put it this way. When I was standing in front of the entire English board for my graduation, and I'm trying to defend my thesis on John Milton with every English teacher sitting down and trying to find holes in my paper, that was freaking like eating an ice cream cone compared to getting tested in front of Martin. When Martin's sitting there like this with his freaking notepad, when you're teaching something, holy moly, dude. Woo, that's a tough one. But anyway, the nice thing is the majority of students that I've seen or instructor candidates that I've seen go through the course that haven't passed, they're okay with not passing because they don't want to pass until they're ready to pass. And they know that when they get that handshake, like, hey, welcome in type thing, it's not there to try to make anybody feel better. It's the handshake is there when it's like, you've reached this level of standards, procedures, technique, presentation skills, and willingness to be this type of diver in person. And now teach level 1. And then after you taught level 1 for a bit, then you could go through and get your instructor rating for the spearfishing course, which there's like a process to that after you've taught a certain number of level 1 courses.
Yeah, cool. All right. Infinitely practical. FYI, we'll check that out. I had 3 more stories to question you about if you've got time. And then
Go for it.
Question. Collecting Megalodon teeth. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, diving off in North Carolina is where we hunt for them. And what's this place, as time has gone on, the ocean levels have risen and fallen hundreds of feet and sometimes faster than others. And so anciently, during the Ice Age, this area that we go diving was like a prairie land.
Wow.
Like there was, 100 feet, 90 feet of water. Now used to be a prairie land.
Huh.
And then before that, the ocean levels were much higher millions of years ago. It was a massive feeding ground for sharks. Like, you were talking about this pinnacle being a place where fish aggregate. Well, imagine a massive shoal that was, potentially like a shallow sea. Who knows how deep it actually was when the megalodons were there. But anciently, here's the ground. The ocean level was up here. Megalodons are feeding, dropping teeth. Stuff was dying. There's bones. Then the ocean levels go way down. The Ice Age happens and grass grows. Now there's land animals walking around and they're dying and they're leaving bones. And rivers are flowing through. And then the ocean levels come back up to where they are today. And now we go out and we dive down. And some of these places where there's ancient river beds that have carved away, there's ledges and places where the rocks will break apart. And they'll sometimes reveal land animal remains from 600,000 years ago. And then there's other times that they reveal shark teeth from 5 million years ago, 10 million years ago, whenever it was. So it's really fascinating to, like, when you go down, you pick up a megalodon tooth, I am the only human in existence that has ever touched this. Mind blowing. This thing has been laying down here for the entirety of human history. Way longer than that. This was here way before the Ice Age and everything. Species have come and gone. And anyway, so the history side of things is really, it makes you feel tiny, but also it's like one of those things where, we've talked a little bit, like, I believe in God, you believe in God. And it's like, man, sometimes I feel this tiny, really tiny. And the fact that I'm this tiny and somehow my prayers are still answered is mind blowing to me. And one of those times when you pick up a megalodon tooth, you're like, okay.
I had a mentor and he hated that feeling.
Oh, yeah.
So small. Like he hated thinking about the cosmos because it made him feel like that. And I said, man, it gives me some perspective, gratitude.
Oh, 100%. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think perspective is important. But I get it. If all you saw was, oh my gosh, I'm tiny. But there's not that asterisk that says, but.
Yeah.
I'm super tiny, but I'm infinitely important as a son of God. Oh, man. I would feel really crappy about that too. Like, oh, I'm worthless and I'm nothing. No, that's not what I'm saying.
They call
infinitesimal.
They call potential angst. I think it probably increases some people. So picking up a megalodon tooth makes you think about that. So
it could be It could either be an existential crisis or an existential, what would it be? Perspective,
Relation.
growth. I don't know.
Um,
No, it's just fascinating. And they're beautiful too. Everyone's different. They tell a story. There's scratches on there from feeding. It's really amazing to get a dive for them.
Yeah. People have a look. John Dornellas online. You've got a heap of interesting stuff. Like you were telling a story about filming a sea otter jumping on the back of a boat you were captaining while it was escaping orcas. That sounded pretty cool.
Yeah. I think probably 1 in 4 people that I ask, if I'm like, hey, have you ever seen a video of a sea otter jumping on the back of a boat to escape an orca? 1 out of 4, maybe 1 out of 2 people, depending on the circumstance, would be like, oh, yeah, I've seen that video. And I'd be like, yeah, that happened the first year that I was captaining out here. I filmed that video. They're like, what? Oh my gosh. It got me in the good graces of a cop one time that pulled me over at like 2 in the morning in Alaska. It had just happened. And I was like, hey, oh yeah. He's like, what, that was you? Anyway, my buddies let me know though, when the Aussie man did have you seen the Aussie man reviews of it? Yeah. Have you seen it?
I haven't.
Oh, dude. Oh, it's so funny, dude. He calls him Gary the Orca. It's like Gary the Orca. It's like, dude, it's so, you got to go watch it.
Link
So,
it up. So
yeah.
I'll link it up.
Yeah, it went pretty viral. It helped, I was thankful for it. It helped pay our rent for a bit. And
Sick.
that was one of those ones where I was very thankful for that experience. I mean, it was cool to me, like obviously, any kind of crazy wildlife experience, but I think it went viral because everyone wanted the otter to escape. So people at the end, when they see me driving away and the otter lives, it's catharsis. People can't handle the ugly truth of nature. So the vast majority of people that wanted to see that video and share it and make it viral is because people were raised on Disney movies and they're soft. The reality is I wanted the orca to win because otters are not very nice creatures. But anthropomorphism and all, that's a double-edged sword in that one.
Orcas like to eat them. They are a crazy animal. Like my mate Bert, he has this company here in Australia called Old Man Blue. And on the back of his weight vest, he's got an orca eye like drawn in and white. And part of
that's cool.
Obviously, hopefully it has the effect of spooking sharks, maybe. But he doesn't say that to people, but obviously that's the intent.
It makes sense, dude.
Yeah, well, the orca eye is such an evil thing, though. Like, they have tricks. Like, they're like, who's that character on the Thor movies? His brother? Like that.
Loki.
Yeah,
Loki.
yeah. They've got a lot of Lokiism about them, I reckon. They're not, they are beautiful and majestic and highly intelligent, but they're also kind of nasty too sometimes.
Dude, you want to see a video I took last summer? I haven't shared this one. So you'll be the first. I guess actually your viewers will be the first people to actually see this en masse, but hang on. Let's see if you can get the sound and stuff. Okay. So I was diving underwater. Here we go.
Yeah.
And this is this massive male. It's a big male transient. Let's see if I can play it. Where's the play button?
Yeah. So
there.
Upside down.
Yeah. So he
is he
so
rubbing
he came,
his dorsal on the bottom?
He's rubbing. Yeah, they rub their backs on the bottom. But dude, so I'm laying on the bottom. This guy buzzed me. Like his dorsal fin, he was every bit of 35 feet long. And so he just came and buzzed me, dude. His dorsal like went over the top of my head. Absolutely massive. What's that?
You poo the suit.
I was terrified right before it because we saw their dorsal fins turn and come at us. And it was one of those moments, like, talk about praying, dude. I was like, all right, God, I want to see these things. I'm like, if I shouldn't, you got to let me know now because I'm going for it. And I made the dive. And I saw him coming in. I'm like, well, I might as well be on the bottom for this with my camera. And I hit the bottom. And luckily I hit play right as he was coming, or record right as he was coming by. And all the fear went away as soon as I saw him.
So good.
It was, dude, it was like, that was a life changer. Like that was the most intimidating, amazing creature. That was amazing.
They don't have to do anything and they'd kill us. Like it'd be such a small amount of effort to kill us. It wouldn't even.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They're just, dude, they're so freaking smart. And I mean, I know like statistically, no one's been killed in the wild by one. They've done some damage to boats and stuff off the Straits of Gibraltar or whatever, but It was one of the, dude, talk about like surrendering control and just being like, okay, let's see what happens. Yeah, that was mind blowing, man. That was mind blowing. It might have been a resident, actually. It might have been a resident orca, one of the fish feeders. I can't remember. Yeah, those are awesome.
Last topic.
So wait, so your buddy, wait, real quick, I want to go back to this one. So your buddy painted like the white splotch, the eye mark,
Yeah, I'll share
the
it with
big
you.
white.
I'll show you.
Yeah, I want to see this. That's freaking awesome. That's such a good idea.
Yeah,
Maybe I need to talk to Rife and see if they can make me a custom orca suit.
he sells.
Wouldn't that be cool?
He sells the stickers. People can put them on their fins and anything. Oh, I don't know if these pictures will do them justice, but like that's the eye there.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So he's got that. He's got that on the. Oh, it's the actual orca eye.
Yeah, and if you go in and you buy, he's got
That's smart.
weight vest. It's so good. Like it's a weight harness. See what can you see it there? A harness. It's called. Just the weight vest. Because he had back problems, so he wanted to get the weight off his back. It's like when you've been diving a long time.
That starts killing your lower back if you're not careful, especially if you're overweighting and heavy wetsuits and stuff. It'll do you. That is freaking cool.
Yeah, I thought
I want one of those.
Old man Blue Dog. I'll send you one.
Oh, I would love to. Does he do like a screen print thing where you can iron it onto your wetsuit?
100%, yeah. That's actually a good question.
Dude, see if he'd be willing to do that, because then people could like iron it on like a screen print onto their wetsuit.
I'll ask him. All right.
I would love to do that.
Put you in touch with him. Easy. Oh, John, meet Bert. And then I'm going to send you a bit of a package anyway. I'll send you my cookbook and a couple of stickers or something.
Cool, man. I look forward to it.
You just have to give me your address after the show.
Yeah.
Look, I had one more topic I wanted to cover and then a couple of quick fire questions. So you mentioned you have sensitive skin and you use shark snot.
Yeah.
It's a seaweed-based lubricant. There's another company in New Zealand called Optical doing the same thing. Tell me about shark snot and how long you've been using it, what you like about it.
So it's basically like this gooey stuff. I tend to burn through a lot more of it than they recommend. One of the things I learned from Martin is most people under lubricate their suits. I didn't realize that your suit is basically not supposed to touch your skin almost like. And so we've done a bottle of lube in our suit to where your wetsuit is just free swimming and so that you're burning less oxygen. Martin, I never heard this until Martin Stepanek said it, but he's like, your wetsuit is the most important piece of gear in your freediving arsenal. It's better. It's more important than fins and anything for breath hold, right? And part of your wetsuit is the lubricant that you choose. And so conditioner, obviously cheap conditioner, is super slippery and it works great. It's way cheap. But the difference is when I'm done diving and I've been using conditioner, I feel like I've been bathed in petroleum-based products. Like my skin doesn't feel very good. I feel like, I don't know, a test rabbit or something at the L'Oreal or Vidal Sassoon plant. The shark snot, on the other hand, I like make that stuff gloopy and goopy, like mostly shark snot with like a little bit of water. And when I'm done, my skin feels like it's been hydrated. And that to me is like my skin feels better. So that's the reason why I use that stuff, is because, I don't want to be, it's an awesome name. Like, I don't want to be, you think about your largest organ is your epidermis, it's your skin. And we're so sensitive to everything that's on our skins, and it leaches into our bloodstream, And so you imagine, no one's ever done studies that I know of long-term exposure to basically, you go diving for 12 hours and you got a wetsuit on. That is a long time to have product that was supposed to go in and immediately be washed back out of your hair. It's still a long time to have that sitting on your skin. So I don't want to wait around and find out that there's a massive string of skin cancers that are caused by, sodium lauryl sulfate and phthalates, or however you say, and fragrance and all that crap, So anyway, yeah, the shark snot's good stuff. I like it. They're really nice guys. And they're not like a sponsor or anything. They reached out to me, sent me some samples before I knew anything. And they've sent me some stuff. But, as far as like a sponsored diver, I buy them, but they're awesome stuff. It's good stuff.
People don't have to sponsor me for me to want to share about their stuff too. They just have to make cool.
Yeah.
I think because our spearing world's so small. Like there's most of these are just passion projects, they love spearing so much they've tried to build a business where they can see a clear problem. And shark stock sounds like optical in New Zealand. There's this woman Kat, she makes it down here. I don't know if it's quite as cool, but I've got to hear the story behind the name. Maybe it is.
Yeah, I think they're based out of California. I don't really know. I mean, it's got to be a place where they got a lot of kelp.
Yeah.
I'm guessing. So yeah, it's good stuff.
Fast-paced round of questions. Dream spearfishing destination.
Dude, I'm living there. Alaska.
Wow.
It is, dude, this place, you come up from a dive here and it's the freshest air you've ever smelled. Like you get, if you come up from a dive and you're like looking at a mountain with snow on it and you can smell like the brine and pine and snow, mixed into one. It's so fresh. And so like, it's just like an extra sensory experience when you're already coming up from a challenging dive and that first breath is so sweet. And I think a lot of it too is just the novelty of diving in a place like this. And it's a different type of beauty. Like obviously, man, I'm diving in with a 2 mil top in clear water where you could see 200 feet down. That's like the dream, right? Easy diving like that. Knocking out a 100-foot dive in Alaska is different. You get, if you're wearing freaking 18 pounds of lead with a 7 mil suit on, suddenly, and when you crush under that depth, that 18 pounds is like an anchor. It is very hard to dive deep here. And so, yeah, it's challenging, but the novelty and just knowing that almost any place I dive here has never been seen by human eyes is just awesome. It is really cool.
Are you still running courses there or guiding? Are you running courses there or guiding still? Or
yeah, I was talking to my buddy, 2 of my students here, the Pollocks. They started a spearfishing freediving company in this little town that's only accessible by boat or by plane. And they're wanting to run some some freediving courses this summer.
Thanks.
And so, yeah, until Chris decides to go and get his freediving certification, I would love to continue teaching. It's really neat to see, the community of divers that have never done it before grow, as well as the divers that have been diving here, they seeing it grow and knowing that everybody's got the same education. And I think it's been really neat to see. So the plan is to keep teaching here periodically.
is that the Adares, did you say?
Say that again.
Who are the people running it?
Oh, Chris and Amelia Pollock. If you look them up, it's Alaska Freediver or Spearfish AK. Okay. Yeah, good folks over in Seldovia, Alaska.
I read John Krakauer's book, Into the Wild, years and years ago. Watched the movie as well. I felt like both of them were a good job. I love that book. I love the movie. I know that obviously the end of the movie is a bit grim, but it does get, I don't know, it gives you like an idea into the romanticism around Alaska. It's a cool location.
It is, man. And people don't realize this. There's more coastline just in Alaska than all of the rest of the United States, including Hawaii combined, if I remember right.
Crazy.
Like, that is a lot of dang coastline. So when you think about all the Aleutian Islands and all the places that are so remote, and I mean, like there's places out there you go and walk on the beach. I know a dude that's seen woolly mammoth tusks sticking out of the dunes in these islands. And then, you're like beachcombing and stuff. And, you're diving and you have 1,000-pound stellar sea lions, 1,500-pound stellar sea lions going around you. And there's orcas and humpbacks and bears on the beach. And it's, it's a different ball game out here for sure. So
last question.
I like it.
Yeah. You've got one sentence to answer. I know you're a verbose man, but can you describe what the spearfishing experience means to you in one sentence?
Let's see, one sentence. I would say spearfishing is like any hunting. Spearfishing is the most natural and effective way of me tapping into my ancient animal, my developed human side of me, and is a reminder of just how much God loves me.
Hey, nice.
I would say that would probably sum it up.
Hard one, man.
Yeah, because it is a hard one, dude, because,
Of course to
we've
be.
been talking, we've been talking for what now, 2.5 hours or something like that about this. And all of it's been in one appendage or another about spearfishing. But I think that would about sum it up is spearfishing is where my human, my animal, and my eternal identity as a son of God get to have every itch scratched at the same time.
Well,
Does that make sense?
it does. I love
Yeah.
the poet out in a Spearo too. You're a bit of a natural, but everyone else. I Breathe Water on Instagram, John. Where else can people connect with you if they would like to?
Yeah, I would say Instagram's probably going to be quick. We just started getting the YouTube up and going again. So I have terabytes of footage that we're eventually going to start getting the YouTube up and going. So the YouTube, I think, is I Breathe Water with 2 R's. But yeah, I would say Instagram's probably the quick and easy.
Oh,
Yeah.
And is there anything left unsaid or that you would like to say or add? Specifically to the spearfishing community, I guess.
I like being forced to think, man. It's kind of, that advice, the first quote that you pulled off of the Rife website, about the things that I would tell somebody coming into it. I think just a little bit more pinpointed would just be like, the sooner you can stop trying to make things happen and the quicker you can just be happy with just sussing it out, and just having a look, you're going to have more fun. And, it's going to give you more of an appreciation for even the days that aren't successful, whether that's enjoying the world around you on the boat ride out, boat ride back in, swimming from shore, the actual dive, every little animal and every little critter that you see. When you stop trying to make things happen and you just are there, suddenly the tiniest little fish, like some of my favorite dives have been when I've been on the bottom, my safety buddies are up top and I'm laying on my back. And I just go into like this zone and all the fish start coming in and the lights dancing and playing through the kelp and these fish are just checking me out. You just feel like you're getting assimilated.
Yeah.
And suddenly, man, if you can find real joy in those experiences, the rest of it will come. Yeah, and you'll be much more aware of the stuff that you should be paying attention to, like the stuff we talked about earlier on. Everything else should follow that. And really just realizing, like, dude, we get to do something that fewer than 0.01% of the entire world will ever get to see. We see things on the regular that no one else will get to see. We are part of the 0 percentile club. So, so recognize how cool that is and what a blessing that is. And it'll make it more enjoyable, make it safer. And yeah, I would say that's probably about
Love it,
where I
John.
would sum it up.
Been an
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Man, you've scratched my bromance itch. I've been for so long, and just have you on, like,
Yeah.
your ideas and thoughts about different aspects of spearfishing. Very cool, man. Thanks for coming along and making time.
Thank you, man. It's been a pleasure, been an honor. And yeah, anytime. I really enjoyed it.
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed today's interview with John Dornellas, an absolute gentleman of a man, and very well thought out. And you can tell, it's evident that he's done a lot of reading and a lot of thinking about spearfishing and some of the implications for it and how it ties into the rest of our everyday lives and shapes us as fathers and people in general, and just how being in touch with the environment, I guess, shapes your perspective with regards to your attitudes towards conservation and all sorts of stuff. Really cool guy. I hope you enjoyed that one. It was a huge mammoth podcast, and really enjoyed sort of picking his brain about a whole bunch of different stuff and hearing about and paying honor to Michael, the reef hunter, as you heard in that episode. Anyway, super cool guy. I hope you enjoyed it. I did mention in the intro the Mackay Hardline and Beyond Charter. It's not too far off going up. It's an intermediate course. If you're sort of that, I'd say 10 to 20 meter dive and you want to round out some of your skills, you're going to be surrounded by guys like Tim McDonald, Tom Sandstrom, Kurt Raymond. These guys are so good to be in the water with. Watch them dive. They're also giving you actionable feedback, and you're in a location that's untouched by, I'm saying 100% of trailer boats. You can't get there. We're like 130 nautical miles off, and some of the biggest tidally affected area along our coastline. It's absolutely phenomenal. So anyway, go to spearfishingcourses.com.au, register for that if you're keen. As usual, episodes like this one are brought to you by Patron Legends. They put fuel in the Noob Spearo outboard on a month-by-month basis. There are 4 different levels you can support the podcast at, starting from as little as, I think, $2 a month. But every little bit helps, and I'm hugely grateful for every single person that ever does that. Again, go to patreon.com/Noob Spearo. There's a whole bunch of benefits to doing it. Obviously, that's not why a lot of the guys do it, but there's a unique email that you get once a month. It's got a special seafood recipe in it. It's got one really deep dive, awesome, actionable tip, and it's normally got a special deal, whether it's a trip or a charter coming up, or whether it's some merch, something getting around Noob Spearo, even the digital product Spear Ready, the 50-day trip to get ready, the 50-day cross-training workout plan to get you ready for the trip of a lifetime. Anyway, go to noobspearo.com if you want to check out any of that. And as usual, guys, tell your mates about the show. It goes a long, long way. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. John Dornellas. We're coming back in another week. I've got another absolute frother lined up, but I can't tell you who it is. See you in 2 weeks. Hey guys, this episode brought to you by Astard Roller Pole Spears. Astard is a brand rooted in craftsmanship and tradition, inspired by the Japanese freedivers, the Ama. Their logo, a hand-drawn star, symbolizes starting from a single point, exploring and returning safely, capturing the essence of their journey and design philosophy. Founded by Adam, who's spent 15 years in southern Japan, but originally from West Australia. He has a background in aviation, digital, and photography. And him and his lifelong friend Kim, and a mechanical genius herself, founded Astard, which embodies a passion for quality, innovation, and versatility. Check them out at astard.co. They have a roller pole spear that will make your head spin. I'll give you the hot tip. Check it out at astard.co. Use the code Noob Spearo. Have free shipping anywhere on the planet. You can't get any better than that. Go to astard.co. Check out their roller pole spear. You need one in your arsenal today. Check it out. Use the code Noob Spearo for free shipping anywhere in the world. Some days when you've maybe shot those 4 or 5 fish that you came for, might be time to pull out the pole spear, jump back in and rediscover that passion and learning that you had right at the start of your journey. This is one of the best tools for becoming a better hunter. Check it out, astard.co. Are you US based, looking for freediving, spearfishing gear? Neptonics is the best. Their online website, so easy to use. If you've got any questions, Jerry and the team answer questions via phone, email. Anyway, they've got an easy contact form on the site. These guys are absolute legends, and if they sell it, they believe in it, they back it, they use it themselves. It's tough gear that works. Visit neptonics.com. Use the code NOOB10 to save 10% on any order at neptonics.com. That's right, use the code NOOB10, N-O-O-B 10 on your next order. Save 10% at neptonics.com. Today's Noob Spearo podcast is brought to you in partnership with Adreno. Live it, breathe it with the world's largest dive store. Huge range of equipment, always growing, always changing. They are the world's largest dive store. They are available just about everywhere. They have hassle-free returns, massive range of equipment, price match guarantee, and you can check them out online. You can even use the code Noob Spearo to save $20 on every purchase over $200 at adreno.com.au. Check them out. Boom.